Welcome everyone. Today we have again the creator of RenoDX, Carlos. Thank you very much for coming again. And we're gonna be talking about DLSS 5 in detail. I think Carlos is probably one of the very few people that can really explain us exactly what DLSS 5 can do and if it's a good idea or not. And we will also be discussing some potential projects that or mods that might be happening in the future utilizing this idea, the power of AI. So thank you very much, Carla, for being here again. If you want to uh, talk about what we're gonna be showing up today.
Awesome. So yeah, thanks again for having me on. It was a bit impromptu. It was like, yeah, we can do another session, since we kind of did one yesterday. And I had mentioned to Ariel, basically, we were discussing DLSS 5. He did that video. I reacted to I sent him a message about that video. And in our Discord, in our RenoDX Discord, we kind of been talking about how it works, how it probably works, what it's doing, and how Nvidia was being very misleading with some of the language they used. So that's kind of what, I can explain how some things work. I generated some AI painted images from video games, from scenes, to at least help people understand what to expect from it. And that's basically where, hopefully we can talk about that today.
And also, let me tell you, we are going to be making a small interactive game here with the people in the chat where you can throw a game. Just think about a game that you would really think it would benefit from something like DLSS 5, and you would like to see how that is gonna look like, because we have set up right now an AI
Yeah.
algorithm or program. We have trained an AI at a supercomputer with an RTX 5090 back at Nvidia, where we can generate very quickly an DLSS 5 like enhancement to any picture of any game, really. And we're gonna be showing some examples that we already have done, so you see kind of the potential of doing this, and you can see your own games. I am thinking, for example, one game that I would really like to see. Of course, I'm thinking in older games because who cares, right? If you have a very old game you already played many years ago, what would be the reason to play it again?
Yeah.
If you have something like a dramatic improvement or a wild mod to enhance the visuals. I was thinking an LA Noir, this Rockstar game that has very realistic facial expressions. And I can only imagine you throw AI to that. Now the faces look like real humans or as close as possible, photorealistic, but the animations are also very convincing. So that would be amazing. And yes, we do have Breath of the Wild right now. Were you working on it right now before?
Yeah, I sent you one over
Yeah.
Discord. So while he looks it up, I just want to read what Nvidia's press release was. They say DLSS 5 takes a game's color and motion vectors for each frame as input and then uses an AI model to infuse the scene with photoreal lighting and materials that are anchored to source 3D content and consistent from frame to frame. DLSS 5 runs in real time up to 4K resolution for smooth interactive gameplay. And then here's what it says: the AI model is trained end to end to understand complex scene semantics such as characters, hair, fabric, and translucent skin, along with environmental lighting conditions like front lit, backlit, or overcast, all by analyzing a single frame. DLSS 5 then uses its deep understanding to generate visually precise images that handle complex elements such as subsurface scattering on skin, the delicate sheen of fabric, and light material interactions on hair, all while retaining the structure and semantics of the original scene. And if you didn't know this, I kind of noticed this. This is an AI generated press release. That is not a real human making those sentences. um,
By the way, I didn't ask how do we sound? How's the volume of my voice, Carlos? Are we the same? Let me know if we have to make any adjustments. So that's what Nvidia says. Now, here's the question: is that actually what is going on, or are they?
well, it's um, to quote Obi-Wan, it's true from a certain point of view, right? From a certain point of view, yes, the AI has been trained to understand complex scenes such as characters, hair, and fabric, and all that, whatever. So, I mean, Ara, you can probably show a picture. You can show the Breath of the Wild one. I think I'm going to generate quickly.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll send you an LA Noir one.
Okay, so I had this open. This is the thumbnail of the video, so I think let me just show this first. This is before. This is a daytime, and this is an after, nighttime. Now, there's no way. Let me tell you, I know there's a lot of people that don't like this idea of using AI because potentially you're changing the artistic intention, all of that. I cannot believe anyone would tell me that they much rather play this right now in 2026. You much rather play the original game like this or even the remaster versus this. Okay. This is like far better in every single way, and we are not changing here the face that much. I mean, it is changing, but for the good part, because this doesn't look great. Like, it's not holding up today. This just not holding up, and I think this just looks striking. It's a revolutionary change.
Yeah.
So,
But I mean, that's kind of the thing where it's just like, where did it? See, I didn't make an AI. This is called an inpainter. What an inpainter does, and I ran this on my computer. Just, you can run a local model that's not optimized. So what Nvidia is going to do is take an inpainter, make a prompt, just like you would say to Google Photos, or you would say to Claude or Grok or whatever, make it look a certain way. Once Nvidia nails the way they want it to look, or at least the prompt, then they optimize. So yeah, they did say, okay, we're running out on a 5090, on a second 5090, mostly because they haven't really finalized what they're going to do. Once they finalize what they're doing with this model, they're going to reduce the amount of steps it takes to generate, reduce time, and reduce hopefully the memory that you would need to run it. But the idea is, like, it's basically been trained on real life photos, and it quote unquote understands. Again, I'll read what they said. It says it understands complex scene semantics like hair, fabric, and translucent skin, which is basically any single inpainter that's been trained on real life images. Where did it figure out that it should have a reflection for the car? It's not in the original game. Where did it figure out that certain things should look a certain way? And if you go back to, like, for example, any of the videos that reviewed it, the Digital Foundry one, were saying, like, it understands that the jacket should be brighter. It doesn't understand anything. It's not really seeing a jacket. It's just been trained on so many realistic photos that it says, well, this is a realistic version of something else.
I mean, for example, here, it's just making up this jacket right here, because on the original you cannot distinguish anything. This looks horrendous.
So then the other question is, well, then how are they going to use it, right? So they said they're going to have artistic control. The way these models work is you don't really get that much control. It's kind of like DLSS, frame generation, where you can mask out. So if you're going to say, okay, I don't want his face to change, then you would literally draw out a little box around his face and then decide how much you want to blend it. Because the problem with these models this is an inpainter. This is not where you give it lighting, where you give it 3D texture data, where you give it, where the lights are, what the models are, where the light source is, the textures. You're not feeding that to the AI. You are feeding the image and say, AI, paint over this image. So it's a little bit weird for them to call it up DLSS, because normally DLSS used to be deep learning super sampling, and that's not what this is. This is not super sampling. It's just painting over.
I
It's
think what happens, I'm sorry that I
yeah,
interrupt you. I think what happens is Nvidia knows DLSS has a very good reputation. A lot of
yeah.
people like it. So they were just trying to use the branding to prevent the backlash because they were afraid that people were not going to be happy about AI stuff.
Yeah,
But
and they said they worked 3 years on this. I don't think they worked 3 years on this specifically. I mean, the idea was, I'll tell you what everybody was really expecting. We expected, I sent you other photo. I think it's sent you an LA Noir photo. But we're expecting what they said originally, which was you feed it texture data, you feed it 3D geometry, and then it will understand lighting. So how do you train something like that? How do you train? Well, how does DLSS upscaling work? DLSS upscaling works by saying, I'm going to give you a high resolution 4K image. Then I'm going to give you the 720p version of that image. And you ask the AI to learn, this is your reference 4K, and this is the lower resolution one. So after enough training, and you give it enough 720p versus 4K, 720p versus 4K, after you give it enough of that, then it learns how to upscale. But this is not trained like that. That is not how they train things. They didn't train it by saying, we're going to make a brand new lighting engine that's way too complicated, that has 7,000 bounces of path tracing. They just said, we're going to paint over it with something else. So then what will you do? They're going to mess with how you blend the colors, how you decide what faces are. Maybe you want to give it 30%, 50% of a blend, an alpha blend. And when you understand how that's how that works, then all those phrases, like they say single frame, all these little minor things start making sense. What does that also mean? You're probably going to have issues. You're probably going to have problems. Some people in the comments have already pointed it out. If it's drawing from the same frame, then what happens with things on the edges? Somebody going to come into frame. Somebody going to come out of frame. And the other thing is that what is your training data? If they're training with cinematic, film, then the reality is that that lighting is kind of baked. So it might inject lighting that doesn't belong there. So what does Nvidia have to do to make this work, quote unquote? They have to basically try to make every frame stable from one frame to the next. That is the motion vector. So that means, for example, if you're looking at Cole Phelps, which is the guy on the left in LA Moore, if he's moving his arm up, then the AI has to know that because he's moving his arm up, we need to enforce that motion, because every frame technically doesn't have. It's basically a new context. So this is basically a video to video encoder is what they're doing. If you actually pull up the I can send you the link, but if you pull up the DLSS 5 video, the one that they showed on YouTube.
yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, I'm going to point out some things in that video, which maybe because the first time we watched it, we're like, whoa, this face has changed. But if you start looking in the background, you're going to start noticing things that maybe you didn't notice before.
Let's do that. Let me find that. Well, send me the link so I can open it.
Yeah. While I look for that link, you can show them.
This Zelda comparison here. So again, look, I think what is the most important thing is that Nvidia. So people are criticizing what they show as the final result as what we're gonna get. I think the important part is to have a tool that you can use and that you can leverage. The final result is gonna be up to the developers. They have what I don't think is a good idea is to have a tool where they are completely and radically changing the game. Like, for example, look at this. This is wild.
I love that one.
I love it, but it is a wild change. It has nothing to do with it. But as long as you have the developers looking at the final result and being able to tell the AI, look, I don't want the clouds to be like this, make them, happy sunny day or whatever, and they look at it and they agree, they agree with the artistic vision, they can tweak it. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, let's see how it works in motion. Let's see how it plays. Let's see what are the compromises, the errors or whatever.
I mean, I think it's fun if you take it as the novelty that it is.
Yeah.
Right? To me, it's a novelty. To me, it's like, this is fun. It's not serious. Don't take it seriously. And I would love to see something like that, with all its jank, because there's going to be jank.
Yeah. And I think the problem is Nvidia calling it DLSS 5 because the expectation for people is, okay, we like DLSS, we know what it is, we use it on every single game. Now, am I going to play every single game like this now? I don't want that.
I mean,
I think that was the problem.
I want to play Wind Waker like that. I'm going to be honest. It would look amazing.
Amazing.
It'd be fun, But to say it's, and here's the thing. That's what I need to clarify, right? What are you capable of? Because in this case, it's like, look how crazy this AI went and made it look weird. But if you're shipping a game and you want that as your final image, you're going to have problems locking down what it does. Because the AI it's just going to paint you a picture, and you're going to be able to decide how much you want to blend, what areas you want to blend by how much. I sent you the reveal YouTube link. And we can play it because that's kind of important to see what they were trying to get us to focus on in the Resident Evil 9 one. And then I'll tell you what spots to pause and to focus in on. Yeah. It's the Wind Waker ones is funny, but also at the same time, how does this AI know, quote unquote, the model? We didn't feed it any model information. It's just literally painting over. That's how it sticks to, quote unquote, the model, 3D model. And again, it doesn't have to understand. It just needs to paint over. And as long as you're painting over something, then you can somewhat respect the bounds and the edges of the characters. Just going to give you a second to find the Resident Evil one.
So what do you want me to
So
stop?
in the Resident Evil one, when you go to about 10 seconds, they do the DLSS off, DLSS on, the very famous image of I don't even know her name. I'm sorry, I haven't played the game.
This one.
Where her face goes from one side to the other. That's what they want you to focus on, and hopefully, Grace, thank you. Hopefully they can get away with it. So at 11 seconds, they're going to do the one where she's on the street.
Yeah.
And then I want you to focus on, not on her because she's center frame. They know how they pick their frames. Focus on my face is covering it, by the way. But focus on the left side where the woman with the umbrella is. Focus above her. And you're going to see crazy wobbly artifacts. You're going to see color shifting because the AI has no idea how to light it.
Okay, so focus on the lady with the umbrella.
On the left side, yeah, you're gonna see a lady in the umbrella, and then on the underpass, you're gonna see from.
Yeah, but it's very fast. So,
I mean, are you looking
at the live stream, so you can maybe point out what you're talking about?
I mean, you should be able to see it. You should be able to see it's a short clip because they're not going to show you for that long.
Yeah, let me slow it down.
Even in the clip that they're showing, so the lady with the umbrella on the left side, there's a light above her. That light is confusing the AI. That little light that's there is confusing the AI, where it doesn't know how to light the beams behind that light, the blue beams. And you're going to see, if you do it in slow motion, or if not, I don't know if you can zoom in, you're going to see those colors just bounce all over the place. It has no idea what it's doing. And that's one of the things of, because you don't really have a lighting system, which is what we were promised.
So you're talking about like a disocclusion problem?
I mean, I can see it on the stream now. So I'm talking about the lady on the left. My face is covering it, so you'd have to get rid of my face on the stream.
Oh, a lady on the left. So let me get your face.
Yeah, on the underpass.
Okay. Lady on the left. Let's see.
I mean, if you notice,
I see what you're saying. Yeah, the lady on the left. Let's look at that.
And above her, the cars, you'll see it. And you'll notice that all these shots, the camera's locked. Mostly the camera's locked. Um, and then yeah, so you move my face. I'm a little delayed because of that's how YouTube is.
Mm-hmm.
But when you play that scene, it just starts wobbling intensely. I'm gonna see if we can at least tell. So then there's a swipe. I'm looking at it now, and everything just starts jumping around and changing colors. Everybody can run this on their own, and they can see that scene, but it has no idea how to light it. It actually looks a bit smoother when in slow motion because it jumps around so much. It's just changing from gray to blue to gray to blue to gray to blue, and it just looks horrible. In the Starfield, and then also in this shot, there's somebody who's in the back. Let me see if it's this one. There's somebody.
I honestly don't see what you're talking about, but I'm sure it's there. The thing is, when you look at a YouTube video, I mean, this looks horrible, but I am considering that it is a YouTube video. But when you see the games, that's why I am surprised when I run the games and I see some of the problems, because I never judge these YouTube videos because of the quality of the video. It's not real-time rendering. So
I can send you the clip. I'll just record it at 4K, and then actually that's how I did it before. Let me just record it at 4K, and then I'll send you the area, and you can poly zoom in on that. Hold on 1 second. But the problem is that because it has no idea how to light it, it's gonna have a bunch of artifacts. And here we go. It's recording. And that's it. All right.
So you're gonna send me another?
Yeah, I'm gonna send you the video. Hopefully you can zoom it in. I mean, obviously, video on video on video is not the most ideal, but it's the type of thing that because you don't have that information that we were promised, you know, that was the promise a long time ago, which was you're gonna have. I don't know if you could see it in the video that I sent you.
The thing is, this looks like super compressed. I don't understand what we're trying to see.
All right, I mean, if you play the video, you'll see it shifting colors, hopefully.
Yeah, the umbrella.
I mean, on the beam itself. I mean, it's not the greatest quality, but on the beam itself, it just starts flipping colors, and
But what is a beam? You mean this?
The gray part, the gray part above the green traffic light, that beam, that cross beam, the cross beam.
Oh, okay. Let me see.
The metal cross beam, and it's just the same way that an AI is inpainting and has no idea what to do with the next
I see
frame.
what you're saying. Yeah, like it's kind of like changing the brightness and the color and everything.
It's jumping all over the place because it has no idea. And this is the one they selected. So then that's kind of the risk. That's the risk of you didn't give it model data. You didn't tell it where things are, what the light sources are. So it has to guess every frame.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's gonna be issues with it, but what I am positive about it, because this is as bad as it's gonna be. It's just gonna get better and better, and the power of being able to do something like this, for example, look at this before and after, and be like, okay, well, actually, I want to have, I don't know, a little bit less contrast. I want this to be more, like handcraft what you want.
Yeah.
Because, for example, let's say I am an artist and I have to draw things. I need a lot of skills to be able to draw. But they do. I mean, the artists, they do have that skill. So maybe they can draw something and say closer to this or whatever. They can tweak the final result. And then the work of Nvidia is not to create art. They are creating the tools for artists to create the art. So they just have to make it run. I really don't see an issue with a bad example because it looks completely
well, I mean,
different.
I guess from my perspective, I'm like, I know what I'm looking for. I know basically when you generate video, when you do video to video generation, which is what this is, you have the consistency problem. You have basically when anytime you watch a video, it tells you how to spot AI. It's the consistency is it's because it's not given information about the scene. Then, for example, it may have something. I make this example. Let's say there's something in the foreground, and it wants to upscale it. If something's on let's say a dining table, and it's a fork at one point, it's a fork in the model, but because it's so blurry and so out of focus, when it upscales it, it puts it as a spoon. And then when you zoom in, it starts morphing to the more detailed model because it has to guess. Is basically what we're saying. It has to guess at what it is. So then those are the type of effects that happen with any video generation. And I'm not saying that it's not going to be, create some great looking things, but it's also you have to temper your expectations because it is an upscaler in the sense where it's making up stuff. And this is kind of a very different way to get users or a very different way to get more quality. Because it used to be, well, the pixel data is there, it's just blurry. But now it's like, oh, it just make it up, figure it out. There was an example in the Starfield one, which is the guy's hair, it added details to the hair. It added makeup, and it does all these things. And you're not going to get, as much as they say, you're not going to get the ability to say, turn off the makeup. What you can do is decide how much you want to blend, but it is going to create this all or nothing because of the way the models work. So these GPUs, if you ever heard of tensor cores and whatever, that is what runs. And it has a fixed matrix of how it's going to compute the result. What you can control is how much of that finalized result you want to blend into your scene, how much of that color you want to take, how much of it, on what positions. But it's not going to be the option to opt to say, well, I want her to have this type of makeup, no makeup, or this like that. It's very much going to be, because of how complicated it is. Maybe in 2 years it'll be something else. But for how it is now, it's just going to create the image and then you pick how much you want to scale it. And at best, you be able to, for example, in Grace's case, you'll say, oh, I don't want the image to pull from this. I like a lot of these example images of the older ones because
there's no way I would play this.
You wouldn't do this. You wouldn't do this at all. It's just insane to do that, right? The way that they're, but that's what the AI sees. That you ask the AI to generate a life. This is a horrible, low quality input, but it can make up anything. Is kind of the good and also the bad, right? There's another picture there of the one before this one, which is
Monkey Island.
Monkey Island. I love that one because it kind of gets it right. I feel like it kind of gets it right. If it was an AI tool to help you paint a scene, I think it would be a lot nicer because you have better control. Paint the textures and stuff like that. I feel like that's a better future. But modding the assets would be a nicer thing. But that's not what this is technically doing. This isn't. If you can get the Monkey Island, I don't know if I'm delayed.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. I mean, this looks incredible. The difference, I mean, this looks disgusting.
Yeah, if you're a purist, it looks horrible.
No. The AI looks incredible in comparison because this looks like completely overly trying to just burn your retina kind of color grading.
But it also tells you that what does it mean to train something, and kind of what they're kind of gaslighting you a little bit. There's no model data here. There's no 3D projection here, but it understands, quote unquote, that there's a light above him and it should cast a shadow and it should, and I think it has some novelty. I'm not here, completely to trash what Nvidia is doing, but also you have to understand what they're actually going to give you and how to control. And the control that you're going to get is not what people think. People are like, oh, you can just say this object. Yeah, you can, but also you're basically masking out what you don't want it to happen. And then it doesn't really get, it's not really to say, oh, I can control what the AI generates, because then it wouldn't be optimal. It's kind of hard for me really to explain that in the sense where you may think, oh, then I can change the prompt. That's not really how this works. They might have presets. I feel like NVIDIA's best option is making presets and saying, do you have a cartoonish game? Then here's a preset for cartoon games. Do you have this type of game? Then here's a preset. But it's not going to be, they'll try to defend themselves because, of course, why wouldn't they? They'll say the artist has control over things. And it's like, yeah, but you're blending is what you're doing. You have A, you have B. Figure out how to blend it. Is kind of what Nvidia's what your options are with these type of tools.
That makes perfect sense, but I am I am optimistic because I think I can see a future where Nvidia creates the possibility for modders to go in to any old game and just type in I want this and this and that.
Oh,
And
I
there
want
you
that.
go.
Yeah, I wish that's what RTX Remix was. Which is basically we were talking about this yesterday, which is like if I can tell the AI to look into the game, why don't I have the AI? For example, even this in that Monkey Island one, right? That Monkey Island one, that's basically a couple of textures. Why shouldn't the AI be able to optimize, the textures that are in there? Um, it, but
Yeah, for
that's
example,
that's not what we're getting. I wish that's what we were getting, and we're not getting, which is like I wish we also had the ability to say, listen, the AI knows how to do reflections. So in the case of Wind Waker, it's like, no, you say this is the water area, and then you say, this is the water texture. It understands it's the water texture. This is a light source. It understands it's a light source, and it's an optimization. Same as DLSS was supposed to be upscaling, right? It can say, well, the AI has been trained on how to do ray tracing, and the AI has been trained on how to do light bounces and path tracing and all that. And the DLSS is an optimized version of that. That is what we kind of all thought they were doing, and that's not what they're doing. They're painting over. I wish that's what we're going to get to, but at the same time, they would have to build an engine that has all that and that they're happy with. They're just kind of jumping straight to make it look like it's, feed it CGI movies, feed it real life photos, and just jump to that.
and I think as marketing, Nvidia wants to show a radical change, thinking that that's what's going to sell the technology. But I see the value in a small improvements. So, for
Yeah.
example, think about this: a future where you tell the AI, "Look, I have a 5090. This is a 15 years old game, and the quality of the textures is too low. Just give me higher quality textures. Just upscale the textures, improve the material so they look better, and then fully utilize my VRAM or whatever. And then you have a game that looks exactly the same. Like you're not changing anything artistically. You're not changing lighting. Nothing.
Yeah.
You're just enhancing the quality of the textures. That's a
I mean,
remaster in your hands.
to me, that's the better option where you can remaster and say, um, I have, I mean, that was the example with Zelda, which is like, we know all those assets. They're like, it's a 320 by 240 rendered game. It's not going to scale well. I wish I can say, here are all the assets in Zelda. Here's what the game looks like. Now remaster it. I want that. Like, that's what I want, because at least they'll give you guaranteed consistency. And you can decide, no, this is not, But this is basically like saying, for example, we've seen it all the time, is a Studio Ghibli filter in motion. That is what an AI can do, and then it's not going to go into the game, which I wish it did. Uh, maybe that'll be AMD's answer, But the other sad thing about this is we can't tweak it, we can't mod it, we can't say, well, let's just tweak the prompt to make it do something. It's the way Nvidia has to optimize this is they're going to use their server farms, and they're going to build this super optimized matrix by running 100,000 hours of GPU time to get that matrix fully trained to how they want it to be in a distributable state. My concern is when Nvidia's, they haven't made a chip this year. This is me being a little pessimistic. I'm a little concerned for cloud gaming, where they say, well, if you want this, like the Wind Waker thing, then you're going to have to use server GPUs, because you're not gonna, it's not in their benefit to be selling GPUs. That's my pessimistic take, but
I see what you're saying. How's it going, Gaming Tech? You wanna jump into the discussion? I can send you a StreamYard link and pop you on the screen if you have a chance. So he says he's not impressed with DLSS 5 right now. Yeah, I mean, again, I think what Nvidia has to do is to give developers options and to give modders option. And they don't need to call this DLSS. This is not DLSS. This should be just another of these. You know, you go here to your game filter settings,
Yeah.
and yeah, there you go. This is one
I
of
would love
these.
to just for, I mean for fun. Like I would love. I guess I could have done it too. Um, could have generated a game and I could have said made it in Studio Ghibli format, right? Let's say uh make it what Studio Ghibli. They're not going to build a preset for that, but it's going to be it's going to happen where they'll have the horsepower, the power, the GPU power to say, no, we can do whatever you want, but it's on our server farms. And I kind of have a very pessimistic, you know, feeling that's what they're going to do because they don't make their money off. I mean, they do make their money, but they don't make as much money as they do with server farm on PC gamers than they do server farms. And if server farms, the ones that are doing all the chat GPT and all that running NVIDIA chips, then it doesn't really cost them all that much to switch to doing this, which is generative AI in painting, which isn't new. That's what I'm saying. Like this isn't new. They're just bridging technology that has existed. And you can run one of these. You can run about at 20 frames per second and generate something like this on a 5090 without it being optimized for that purpose. It won't have the consistency that obviously they're adding in, but it's just basically an AI. I want people to understand that it's basically an AI on top of it. It is not painting over. It is not lighting data. It is not depth data. None of that is being applied here because NVIDIA's it's too complicated right now for them to be able to compute that. The easiest thing right now is you feed it images pre-generated of real life images and let it learn how to make something look real is kind of what I was saying.
I think right now I would be perfectly content with Nvidia adding this as a filter, game filter, not DLSS 5. Okay, DLSS 5 they have to just keep improving the quality of the image, the upscaling and all of that to make it more looking like a higher and higher resolution. But they just make it a filter and then they give you an intensity slider so you can have fun for all games. So you get your old game and you, for example, on this LA Noir, I would be like, okay, can I turn the AI enhancement down a little bit maybe to so it looks closer to the original?
I mean, you kind of said that. You know where I said that, you know, you can't really mod it, but this is going to be HDR all over again. We're going to get this, you know, forced or shoved down our throats, and then we're going to have to make a mod to just dial it down.
Tweak it, dial it down a little.
Oh my god. You kind of set me up now.
Okay, so why don't we I mean, feel free in the chat, throw a game out there. We're gonna do this basically. We can do this. How fast can you generate?
I can use a low model, which isn't great, and it'll do in 0.2 seconds. It'll do a low quality one. To make it high quality, which is probably what Nvidia is gonna do, it takes me about 70 seconds. Here's your Studio Ghibli version of it's just generic AI nonsense. I mean, the nice thing about all these in painters is they're kind of built for they're built on real life because that is what people want to see. People want to see their pictures that they took look professional, right? That's kind of what they're kind of trained on. What Nvidia is adding to what has already existed is their frame generation. Motion vectors. If you don't know how DLSS frame generation works, is it has the model data and then it has the camera position, so it knows based on what the model is and the camera position how it should blend stuff. This is just basically, I mean, this is just basically a nice. I feel like that would be a nice way to just add on. You should be able to just add these type of things.
I love this one,
I would love it. I mean,
yeah, this looks timeless. This looks timeless.
Let me switch to a cheap model just to show you also the repercussions of a cheap model.
You already did Zelda Ocarina of Time, right? Can you share that that picture?
Yeah. Oh, I love the Ocarina of Time one. I did a couple. Let me see if I can find it. So the one there's a cheaper model. You guys can run it on your own computer. It takes 2 gigs of RAM. This is a Flux Decline 4 or 9 billion parameters. Um, Probably Ariel's gonna want me to teach him how to do this for
That
himself.
picture.
But yeah, oh, I love that. That'll run it. I fed it. I don't know if I have the original image. Let me just throw this here. I fed it Ocarina of Time, and it did this at. It can do this at 20 frames per second. There's no consistency because I don't have a model that does consistency, but it's not impossible for Nvidia to do this. Somebody asked you for Max Payne 1. Let me see if I can get this faster model, which will at least turn out.
So what are all these different versions that of?
So
this
that is how.
Ocarina of
So
Time?
this is. I don't know if anybody here has seen where the quarter crew, where they tried to draw, they tried to make an anime out of CG or AI generated images. Back then, because it wasn't a consistent model, it would just come up with a new frame every time, and that's they kind of made this cool AI video where it just kept changing every frame because there was no consistency. You'll see an eyeball move here or whatever, uh, but a model that understands consistency, which is a video model, wouldn't bounce. So in this example, at least I can generate 8 keyframes, which is kind of the big thing, at 20 frames per second. And ideally speaking, you create one keyframe and then you just make minor changes. If you feed it the right model data, or delta is what we would say, then you would say, okay, in this image, only this part is moving, so only do this box and then blend the result.
So let me ask you. You're telling me that right now you are able to mod Ocarina of Time and get 20 frames per second looking like this?
Well, if I wanted to not have consistency, you could probably do it. I think you could probably do it with an emulator, like a Game Boy Advance emulator. You know, people are asking what GPU do I have. I have a 5090. I got it when it came out. So then you could probably do. I mean, that would be. I feel like that would be cool. I'm looking into that. I'm going to be honest. I'm kind of looking into that to see if this can generate at 20 frames per second this type of content, a new keyframe at 20 frames per second at 1 megapixel resolution before you upscale it. Then do the math. So if Nvidia can run at 1 megapixel 20 frames per second, then they just have to let the rest of their stuff carry over, which is frame generation, which will boost your 20 to 80, or if you have 30, it'll boost it 4 times to 120. They use their upscaling as well, and they also boost the quality. So it's not completely unheard of. It's more like they're exposing, in a way, it's kind of neat because they're exposing to the general public that what this technology can do, but it's nothing new in my eyes. It's just inpainting. I've seen it. I'm sure a lot of people have seen it all the time on Twitter. But in this case, I actually have a prompt. I'm actually modifying the prompt. Supposedly, if I just chop out the prompt and optimize it, then we can look at something much higher.
So let me ask you to see if I understand this. So from the original game, the idea is to generate one AI version picture, and then utilize motion vectors to
stabilize it.
So it doesn't have to generate each frame a brand new AI thing, right?
No, I mean, you don't really need it to. Well, if 90% of your image in every frame is consistent, then you don't need it to generate the new parts. Let me see. Let me just send you this one. Let me see how fast it's generated. I'll tell you exactly how fast it generated this image. In 0.07 seconds, I got this keyframe. Somebody asked for Max Payne, which is kind of funny in the sense where
I love this, by the way. This is this would be great just to have.
So this is the cheap model that I kind of feel like we could exploit because this runs at 20 frames per second. This runs at 20 frames per second.
Oh wow!
Now it runs at 20 frames per second. I know this is apocryphal. This is just horrible because Max Payne has a face model, and we're just violating.
No, but it looks like the person. It doesn't look off.
Yeah, it looks worse on stream. I'm gonna tell you on YouTube. I can tell you now, but this can do it at 20 frames per second. So
So,
why
but wait,
not?
let me ask you. So you're telling that you can.
This is a cheap model. And again, this is not the other model. It takes me a minute, but this is one that does it at 20 frames per second. It's just like I can generate. I kind of want to tap into that. I don't have a flow going on for that, but I would kind of want to see what we can do with this. That's just my interest because as a modder, it's like as a developer, I want to see something come out of this.
But wait, let me see if I understand. You can right now modify Max Payne 1 and get 20 frames per second with a 5090. Doing this?
Probably. I'll tell you honestly, probably. We just need. I mean, that's a model that's not trained, that's not tuned. This is running. What is this taking? This is taking a 720p input and outputting 720p. Which is what the game is, right? I mean, how crazy of the resolution is, and this I can generate a bunch. Just 20 frames per second is kind of if I can do one in in this much time. Ideally speaking, if you can do all the math, it's 20 frames per 20 frames per second at worst because of keyframes. So the way video works is video takes your one frame and then everything that moves you generate the next part. Yeah, stream master yourself.
Now, let me ask you, can you, and by the way, we're going to read the chat now too. Can you, for example, tell the AI, okay, I want the colors to stay like this. I don't want the colors to get used up.
It's in this case it's the prompt. So Nvidia has to make a prompt because the way the AI works now is they're tuned to user configured prompts. That's how they work. So the way AI understands things is that it takes your text, and this is a big. I guess it's good to understand what is it really doing. What is an AI model? An AI model is a big math function. It's a big matrix. So basically, it says when I give it this number, it's going to run through its super massive matrix, all this matrix, and it's going to spit out a result. The way you train a model is like, well, when I ask for a tree, then it's going to run through all its math, and when it's done with its big matrix, give you the image of a tree. Because it understands, as Nvidia says, because it's tuned that the word tree should result in this mathematical function, the mathematical result. In other words, if I say what's a plus 3 equals 5, then a is 2. So then it knows how to solve that math equation and give you a result. That also means that if you get rid of the prompt system and you just make it a fixed matrix, which is not variable, which is what NVIDIA is going to want to do, then it'll run faster and hopefully it'll be smaller. And that's what NVIDIA is trying to get. But even today, you can kind of get something feasible, I guess, working with these models. And that's all how it's gonna be built. They're probably gonna not make a prompt, and they're gonna fix some parameters to have. In your case, I put the word rich colors, vibrant HDR. I put that in my prompt, but I can also tune it to something and not have it. I don't know. This one didn't change the colors. I got rid of that phrase, and I can just make another one that didn't change it. And you know what? It's now his jacket matches.
Wow, this is much better, yeah.
Yeah, now his jacket matches, and because I removed the word rich. I don't even remember what I said, but yeah, I got rid of the words. I said rich, vibrant color and whatever. Now it's like, oh, it looks like what you passed into. I feel like that's cool. I feel like it's cool. There's an ethical thing because where to get all this stuff, where to get all these pictures. I think they sometimes these models have the data sets, so you can download the data sets and they can see how it did it. But they're not that far off in terms of being able to do that for old games. I feel like it was kind of a waste. I guess I know why they did it, but there is so much more potential I feel for old games, just because I feel more interesting.
Yeah. I would like to see Red Dead Redemption 1 because what I am interested. I am not a retro gamer. See, if the game doesn't play well, doesn't hold up, I'm not gonna play it. But I am interested in these old games that are actually very good games, like Red Dead Redemption 1. where the quality of the animations and the interactions between the objects in the game, it's just incredible. Great story. So that game, it only needs this. So if you give me this, it would be like a brand new game. Very impressive. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So,
look at that.
so then, like, I give you this one, right? This is what Nvidia said, right? It understands lighting. It understands it. I mean, it looks great.
Now
If
this
we
one
could,
is definitely changing the face. I want a face
yeah.
that looks closer to.
But then, as the thing is, like, ideally, you speaking, you can have the model tweak the face a little bit less. You might want to blend the face less. You'll put a little box around the face
Mm,
and say, don't apply as much math to this section. Is what you can do.
right.
And you can do alpha. You can say, okay, for this section, don't apply as much math to it. But in that photo I sent you now, if you look at the train on the left, it's getting shadows that were not there.
Oh, absolutely.
It's getting reflection on the smokestack or smoke, whatever it is, that wasn't there.
Yeah.
It
But
might not be. It might not make sense because if you also notice some things is the reflections on his where he puts the pistol away in the holster has moved. But then again, this isn't a model tuned to that. And that's also why, and I feel like maybe that's what they were saying, is like the more information you feed it, which is the more lighting you feed it, the less the AI will hallucinate. Because again, this is not an optimized rendering system. This is simply an inpainter that has been tuned to create a certain type of result.
yes, but it's like you were saying, we need presets. I want a preset, for example, to make any game like this. I
Yeah.
want a preset to make any game photorealistic to do this. I want a preset, and I think this is the most important one, that keeps the game exactly the same. No lighting changes, no nothing. Just enhance the textures. So, for example,
Yeah.
this jacket right here, it would look exactly the same, but just add detail. Maybe that's not there, but it doesn't matter. Would you be upset to have more detail material here or something? No. Same
No, I
color.
mean,
Don't change
yeah,
anything.
yeah. I mean, that's also. I think there was an issue. I'm trying to
By
think.
the way, can
I,
you do
I
that right now instead of asking it to do like photorealistic? Just keep everything the same color. Just enhance the.
all right. Let's see. I put a real life image, update lighting for correct lighting, high resolution 8K, high detail. I put same contrast doesn't work. I put cinema, you know, amazing cinematic, which maybe is not what you want for the game. You don't want it to touch any of that. And then
What I want to see is exactly the same colors and everything. Just enhance
I think this one came
the
out okay.
textures
I think this one came out okay. Um, but I mean, this is me playing around with it for a day or whatever.
for a
What is?
moment, like half a minute.
Yeah, and ideally, this is a little bit better. This one's a little bit more consistent. I think the colors are mostly on point here. But I mean, to your point of what you were saying, this one kept the same brightness. At least it didn't give it contrast. It just kept it.
Mm.
I feel like that it should be the case where you might want to ask the AI to help you, which is why I think it's a better one. I feed it, generate 10, generate 20 images and help you pick what would it look like if it was upscaled. And then the AI should help you update your game. That's, I feel like, is a better system. And you now have a goal towards. And then it can say, well, I have the lighting model. I mean, I have the light sources. I have the character data. And it'll move the same way it can keep coding or keep running the math until it gets to a result. The result should be able to build that. That is basically.
And can you build this like when you do with ChatGPT, for example? You ask it something, it's giving you this, and then you go and you reply, "Yeah, I like that, but keep the
Yeah.
face the same, but this," and then he
I mean,
modifies on top of that.
that's what's called an LLM, which is using words, understanding language, and you don't need that for this. Once you make a preset, that is just a chat. I mean, Nvidia has that. Nvidia has, I think it's called ACE.
No, no. I mean, like right now, when you created this, can you say, "Yeah, I like that you keep the lighting
No,
similar, but
I mean, there's other models that you can give it. I haven't messed with it. I haven't had that long. This didn't come out too long ago, so I was kind of just diving into it. I've done image generation. I've messed with stuff like that before, and video generation. There are models that you can give it the keyframe, as we were saying, and then you can have it bias the new frame based on an old one. That'll help you get consistency.
can you
But
try?
yeah.
Can you try again? Because I would like to see exactly the same. Like, don't change anything with the colors or shadows. Just touch the
So then
textures.
let me see. I mean, you can try it. What I was going to say is that if you notice in their DLSS, so what is the future, right? If you notice in their press thing, they said with a single frame. They're kind of emphasizing that. They're probably doing that intentionally because the next model is not going to be a single frame. The next model is going to look at more than one frame. It's going to have a trained. Hopefully you can be able to feed it. Here's, for example, here's what Grace's face looks like, and then update it so it looks like that. You give it a reference image. That's multiple inputs for an image. Let's just say updated textures.
Yes, because I'm thinking about
remaster
this.
4K.
What I'm asking you is more like DLSS. DLSS was not changing anything with the colors or the lighting or anything. It was just enhancing the sharpness and the upscaling.
But that's also how it's trained, because DLSS is comparing a 720 image to a 4K image and then saying, I'm going to just send this to you. I don't know how different it is. I kind of lost track of how different it is. It feels like it's kind of the same. The only thing I asked for this one was, what did I say? I said updated textures remaster 4K. That's all I said. I said nothing else with that. I didn't ask for cinematic. I didn't ask for anything else. I lost a train of thought.
Yeah. I mean, we can go and let's read the chat a little bit. I mean, we got a lot of comments on this one. You can go, see if you highlight a question for you. I'm going back to the beginning of the stream to see.
All right, I'll do this. You can look at the chats, messages, and I'll start looking at I'll start generating what I see. Somebody said Witcher 1.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think I agree with you, Busty. We were like calling it DLSS 5. That was a huge marketing mistake. I think they were just trying to bank on the people's good sentiments towards DLSS. Like, a lot of people like DLSS. They try to attach this AI thing to DLSS to prevent the backlash, and I think that backfired big time. If they say, look, we are working on this, it's gonna be a new tool for modders, here is the potential, and they show a bunch of old games that no one's gonna play anyway, no one would be upset about this at all. People would see the good part. But to imply this is the direction we are going, DLSS is something you're supposed to use on every single game, so now this is how every single game is gonna look. People hate that. And then they are showing the latest and greatest games with path tracing radically changed. Of course, that was not gonna work. I don't know what they were thinking, honestly. But I think the possibilities are there.
Yeah, I think it's fun. I feel like this is a technology that I understand what Nvidia wants to do with it. Nvidia wants to make it in a certain way to sell and make it exclusive to them, and had say, well, we worked with developers and we made this happen. But I feel like it's not as you can probably get a bit more out of it.
Oh wow! Look at the Witcher 1. This,
I mean,
and let me ask you. So this was the reference picture?
Did I send you two?
You sent me two. Yeah.
That's it. Single frame, right? That's what it says.
Single frame, but this is a mess. Like, I can barely tell what's going on here. It's super low resolution, and now you go to this. Wow, that's wild. That's a big change.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of it's what AI is able to do. But as we've seen with a lot of hallucinations, temper your expectations. but at the same time, don't just completely scoff at it either. It you know, I like kind of took a high resolution image. So then I don't think I can take a 4K image. I have to downsample it a little bit. I was trying to get a, okay, this one worked. I don't know if it's much better, but maybe. It's probably most, I mean, this in this case, it's probably mostly not too different. No, it's not even worth it. My concerns are things out of focus. My concern is smearing. There was something in the same Resident Evil one, which is somebody is your same motion blurs. What they're gonna try to do, which to their credit, they have the experience, is blend what they've done with DLSS frame generation and that type of temporal consistency that they have there, and get it to look consistent. There was something in the Grace one, which basically there's a guy who's holding an umbrella. It's actually not in that clip; it's a Digital Foundry clip, where he's walking with the umbrella, and it just gives him a complete shadow one frame, and the next frame he's fully lit. And those type of things will basically kill your. They'll pop out at you, and they'll be very distracting.
Maybe they can use something similar to what they do with asynchronous reprojection, the frame warp, where you don't have the information when you're moving to the left or to the right. You don't know what's there, so then they warp the same frame to prevent the artifacts or something.
Yeah, I mean that's something that they're gonna have to. I mean they're protecting themselves by saying, you know, oh, the better quality images that you put in, the better you'll have that it comes out. You know, this just looks smooth, but I'll just put it anyway. It's just an example. Somebody asked for BioShock. I kind of ruined my prompt because I just put upscale texture CGI, and it's not really the same as the prompt I had before. And that's kind of what they're going to do. They have to nail a prompt. It's kind of amazing how important a prompt can be.
Oh, wow.
So I'm going to run it again, but with a different prompt. This one's a different prompt. It's the same.
Yeah, this one is definitely changing the greenish look of the original. But that's
I mean, you
can
can do that. You can fix that in a shader.
Yeah.
So you can take a shader, and here's what I feel they're going to get. This is what they do for RTX HDR. They give you a shader, and the shader is able to help you create the blend. So they'll give you a shader. Actually, we're looking at something in AMD's. They'll give you a shader, and you can say, okay, blend this part, blend that part, and then it'll help you, you know, do the contrast, which is what they said. They said contrast, saturation, all this stuff, which is post-processing. You should consider this a filter, like post-processing, but it's post-processing on top of post-processing. One thing that I did notice is color changes, and I don't know how they're going to solve that. But I guess if you can say, no, take blend the hues or whatever, we kind of do that with RenoDX too a little bit. This one completely got rid of the green.
Yeah,
the one I
that's
showed you
what
now, the
I'm
BioShock.
saying. Yeah.
So then you would have a shader that would blend, that would try to say, well, this is as much as you can change the hue. If the hue is, you know, this much degrees, then you're only going to allow to shift this much of this many degrees. Let me see what's going on in the chat.
Yeah, but I think the potential is just incredible. Nvidia just needs to be able to make this run and give enough options to...
Oh, I just saw her face. I'm sorry. It just lit up her face.
Yeah, the face.
You would want to put a mask on that face because there's an emotion in that face. But then again, this is the super cheap model. This is not a great model. This is me run.
Added some lip some.
Yeah, this is not a great model. This is the very cheap one. But even at the very cheap level, it's kind of crazy what it can just add into a scene. I love what it did to her. I just broke her eyes completely. But that's because I'm not using a great model to do this. But yeah, these models exist. They're awesome to play with. There's one that is a website And you can just, I think it's DLSSify or something like that, and it uses the exact same model and it just runs in the web browser. You can feed it an image and you can do it. In this case, I'm running it off my graphics card. But that's basically how we're expecting it, to work. So then you can start running through your head of like, okay, what are the issues they're going to have? Can it do this? Can it do that? The lower quality input, the more it's going to shift. So if her face were more defined, then it wouldn't shift as much. And you could probably build a mask and say, oh, this area, don't do it on that area.
What I would really like is for Nvidia to focus on enhancing, so creating this enhancing, but not changing anything really, like not changing the green, not changing the color grading, nothing. So they keep the artistic intent. And
well, there's some
it,
things that sometimes the color is quote unquote wrong, and then that's what it's fixing because it doesn't have the lighting data. So I'm trying to think of an example. If there's no lighting, so for example, if you go back to the Monkey Island one, the Monkey Island one does not have lighting on the wall, but it adds it. So it has to change in some way. It has to change the color that
yeah,
on
I
the
see
wall.
what you're saying. Yeah,
It has to change the color on the wall. So then you're gonna start breaking a couple things when you're trying to make it blend. So how does NVIDIA protect them? They'll say, wait, no, you need to give it a high quality input yields a high quality output. And it's like, well, it's not my fault that it's
and
not their fault. You fed it low quality, which is probably why they don't want to put it for older games. But the potential is there. I feel like somebody should. All right, I'm gonna send you the Minecraft one.
and let me tell you, for me, this is like way better. This is like perfect. Like what it did to the water, the color of the water. I mean, what is the reason for water to be purple like this? This is just wrong.
You're gonna get me started on another tangent. A lot of let me catch up again. A lot of games have a lot of purple hue issues and blue issues, and that's a color error. A lot of ACES and those tone mappers kind of break purple and make it's supposed to be blue when it turns purple. That's actually one of the issues with the ACES2, which we were talking about yesterday, where blue becomes purple, and then this would try to fix that. Or what it understands the scene would be. I sent you the Minecraft one. I think the Minecraft one is kind of important to understand what it can do and how you can understand and how you can be misled. In the Minecraft image that I sent you, it adds reflections to the water.
Yeah.
Which is kind of insane when you think about it because it's just one frame. So how does it know? It doesn't. But it's right. It was actually right, which is kind of scary, a little eerily scary, that it's able to do that. But if you can do it to Minecraft and it can add light to it, I don't know if you're putting it up on screen.
Yeah, I am.
Okay. Where did that yellow reflection come from? It's not wrong.
No, it's incredible. He's doing that.
And this is not Nvidia's model. This is just something out on the web.
So now let me ask you, how do you think? So how good will this run? Because we know they are using 25090. So why are they using 25090s right now? And how fast do you think it's gonna run?
Don't concern yourself with the 5090. I believe it when they say, and I guess this is, if you thought I was trashing Nvidia, they're probably not going to trash this one. But believe it when they say they're going to get that down. This model, I mean, this is Minecraft, granted. This model, if I say it can do 20 frames per second, not optimized. I mean, granted, I have a 5090, but it's only eating 2 gigs of RAM, 2 gigs of VRAM. So when it's not optimized, the full one is maybe 20, 30. So what they're doing and why they had a second 5090 is because they need to dump that giant, massive matrix 32, and all the other tensors and all the other tensor math that they have there, and dump that into 32 gigs of RAM of 5090 because they haven't finalized how they're going to do it. Then what they'll do, they do this with DLSS. With DLSS 4 training, I could probably look it up. How many hours did they train? So then they're going to train this model once they're done, they're going to make a fully optimized matrix. So I'm going to see what they said, how many hours, how many billions of hours, which is kind of the sad thing, because what if I don't like it? They're not going to build. They already spent billions of hours making it. Yeah. So then they already, I wish I could find how many hours, how many millions of hours they spent. But that also means you're not going to be able to just make a model like this because it costs too much. And that was actually, I mean, people in the AI field understand that one of the things with some like DeepSeek and all these different companies, what they got a lot of press about is that no, we can train a model with only $100 million. And Nvidia is able to,
they have $100 million. I don't think that would be an issue for them. Now, Carlos, I'm still trying to I would really like to see, and maybe it would take multiple iterations. I would really like to see if it is possible for this AI thing to not change anything else other than just the quality of the textures. So it looks like a pure enhancement.
I don't know. I mean, I don't think it depends on how this model is. So the model I'm using, I'm going to send you the link to the model. This model is not really. I'll show you Flex.
And the reason why I'm insisting on that is because if Nvidia has an option where it doesn't change the artistic intent at all, it just improves the quality, the detail, and the materials, who is going to argue with that? Like, it would be a no-brainer.
So the problem, this is the model I'm using now. I sent you the link, right? I'm just scanning, make sure.
Do you want me to
I'm just trying to make sure everything how this link is safe. Yeah, it's fine. You can click it. You won't get banned. These type of models, they do text to image, and they also do image to image. So
it is free, or it's only
this is free. This is free. This is Black Forest Labs. In fact, when they promoted their 5090, they showed Black Forest Labs a couple of stuff they did. Somebody said Balacho. I kind of want to see it too.
So how do I use this? So this is not what you're using to.
That's what I'm using now, right?
Oh,
that's what I'm using now.
How do I use this to do what you were doing?
That's. I mean, I guess we could. No, it doesn't take you. I mean, you have to download maybe about 7 gigs on your hard drive, and I don't know your internet speed.
Yeah, I have 1 gig up and down.
Yeah. I'm just doing the Balacho one just because somebody asked. But the way these models work is they can do 2 things. They can do text to image, which Nvidia doesn't really care for, and they can do image to image. So then if you see the second part, which is talking about, and it shows you, okay, take this person, this motorcycle, and then turn it into a horse, or add balloons to this person. And these models have been trained to accomplish that. There's text to image, there's image to image, and then the third one, which is image to image multi-reference. And it gives you end-to-end latency, which is E to E, from start to end. So then it can generate an image ridiculously fast. We're talking about
so
less
how
than a
do
second.
I get started? Like, where do I go here to?
All right. So if you're on this one, you would need to. Let me see what's. I want to see if they have this. That would be ComfyUI. I just want to see if there's a link here. If not, I'll just send you the ComfyUI link. For Klein. What do we say this is? Flux 2. Klein is the newest one. It came out 2 months ago, I think. Yeah.
Go here to all models and then use.
No, I sent you a better link for that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I sent you a link to ComfyUI. ComfyUI, this is another thing. ComfyUI is also basically what everybody uses to generate images and videos, right? You're going to get into a spiral of stuff you can generate with this, and especially because you have a 5090. Yeah, I'm just reading the comment. So then the link I sent you, no, I think it's the one I sent you, the ComfyUI. ComfyUI is an application that runs, it's written in mostly Python, but it communicates with your graphics card There's probably a setup process, but then you can decide. I mean, it tells you performance distilled base 17 seconds, 5090. That is to make image, uh, uh, text to image. Then image to image is what I was doing. I used. Let me see what I used.
Let me go and read the chat. I mean, I've been reading all the comments, by the way, since the beginning. If you have any questions for Carlos, let me know. I've heard that they just use 25090s to quickly put out the demo, but have it running on just one GPU on their lab. Yeah, Carlos is saying that they are gonna be able to make it work for one GPU very well. That shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah. So the way these, and this is just so you understand, everybody has these. So you have heard CUDA cores and you've heard tensor cores. This does not run on CUDA cores. This runs on tensor cores. Your math. Yeah, Flux is probably trained without permission. I wouldn't be surprised. The math that you do for most stuff, which is multiply, divide, sine, cosine, power, exponents and all that log, that is called ALU, or basic math arithmetic logic units, if I'm not mistaken. And that runs on CUDA cores. That is how games are rendered. The tensor cores run on big matrices, neural networks, and stuff like that. So a game would use all the ALU that it has to render a scene and then pass this over to the tensor cores and have the tensor core run the post-process painting over. So it is actually kind of quote unquote free performance because it doesn't use the same chip. It's a different chip on your GPU. What it takes is more power if you want to run both ALUs and tensor cores at the same time. But that is what they're doing. So they can run it on 15090 because the game is running on ALU on the CUDA cores, and then the AI stuff is running on the tensor cores. So it doesn't really affect it. And that's how Nvidia also other chips have different chips on their boards. They have encoder chips, so you can be playing. I guess that'll answer some questions for some people too. If you ever thought that, if I'm running my Nvidia encoder, it's slowing down my rendering. They're different chips. There's different chips running on the same board. So it's specialized just for that. And if you're not doing anything with it, I guess that's also why it's DLSS. Because if you're going to run DLSS, which is tensor core, the upscaling, then you're not going to have tensor cores available to run this. So maybe that is also why it's considered an alternative, because you probably can't do both. They have to optimize one matrix to do both the upscaling and the inpainting and the frame generation, at the same, ideally at the same time.
I see what you're saying. Now that we are here, I wanted to ask you, do you think it would be possible for RenoDX in the future? Can you change can you optimize a game? Like, you have access to these shaders. Is that enough to change the code so it runs faster because it's more optimal? Like, you intercept all the code that you can and then identify with AI maybe what is not optimal, like it's redundant or something, and then just make it more
efficiency. There's two ways. I mean, that's kind of what DLSS was supposed to be, right? So DLSS is, if you take it from the hardware perspective, you have a board. It has CUDA cores that's doing arithmetic, and you have tensor cores doing matrix math. So it's wasted potential, quote unquote, to not use the tensor cores. So if you have tensor cores on it, which is really good for matrix, which is really good for neural rendering and all that stuff, then you can have the ALU render at lower resolution. That's your optimization, and then have the tensor cores scale it up with a neural network, which is a deep learning, original deep learning super sampling. That is where you'll get your benefit. Can we change code and make it run faster? We can, but generally there's not. GPUs are so basic in math that it's usually not like, oh, this GPU has a new function that we can tap into sometimes, but generally not. Uh, what
Because
you, yeah.
what I would really like to see when it comes to optimization is I think these developers are optimizing their game for the lowest common denominator, and
Oh, I see what you're saying.
there's a lot of compromises that they have to do to make these games run on the Xbox Series S or something like that. And I would really like for every single game to be made just for my GPU.
Well,
Okay,
yeah,
to
you
fully take advantage of all the
okay.
VRAM of every single thing. Like you're saying, maybe if there's something that can be run in the Tensor Core or the RT cores, then take it away from the main ones or whatever. I don't know. Uh,
So there are math because everything is math at the end, right? The GPUs, they're doing math. They're graphical processing units, and they're really good at doing math. And there are more optimized way of doing things. People have created new functions. You can the way you do what's the phrase, or the way you do the lighting. There's Lambert. There's different other ones. There's all these different types of techniques to do lighting, and some of them just perform better because of the math that's involved. Sometimes the way you feed, the amount of data you feed, you might say, well, let's take the steps. Let's say let's generate the normals. Let's generate surface painting instead of the old model where we only had ambient, diffuse, specular, and I forgot the last one, the Phong model. But there's different models to lighting, so you can change your model to lighting to benefit hardware. So some hardware is faster with, you know, faster memory means, oh, then I can dump stuff in memory faster. I can copy sections faster. Then this model might perform better. I mean, I didn't know anything about tone mapping until I started this, so that's kind of what we're looking at next. We're kind of moving to that topic, but there's some people now which are kind of know that stuff better than I do, and it's just nice to see them be like, I'm going to change, atmosphere, the Rayleigh scattering in the clouds. I'm going to change the way that math works, because you know what? This is an old game, and we don't do that function anymore. Now we have a better way of doing it, more realistic way. And as time goes on, and you see all those GDC conferences, everybody's sharing their methods. So it's like, look, we found a faster way to do this. We think this is better. We think this math is better. The new science came out, and apparently you do math like this, which is kind of what I've been doing with tone mapping, which is like, well, the science now, as of a couple years ago, says the human eye, these are the numbers for the human eye. So you use these numbers, you'll get a better result. Sometimes it's faster to use those numbers. Oh, don't use this exponent, use this mathematical function,
or a higher quality
well, I mean, quality is subjective in the sense where your eye will spot out things that are unnatural, and it'll be like, this doesn't look right, and it'll reject it, and it'll look worse. The quality is always subjective. Obviously, pixel count helps, but a blotchy screen is always going to be bad math in certain areas. Shadows are just going to throw you out of the game, where it's like, this looks weird, and it doesn't matter if it's at 4K, it just looks wrong. Like pop in or whatever, those type of things will annoy you. It doesn't matter if it's 8K pop in or 720p pop in. It's just bad regardless.
By the way, because we see the comment hoping the popping gets fixed. Can RenoDX fix the popping? So are they trying to? You said also in this game, for example, they're trying to improve the shadows and other things.
I would. I mean, that I have to give all credit to Forge on this, because I don't know about this. But it was a nice thing of, I kind of built the engine to say, I don't know how this works, but the tools are there that someone can unlock the potential. And the nice thing is that the way a lot of games work now is a lot of it is on the GPU. So what I've built is basically a way to intercept GPU. And as long as that math is done on the GPU, we can intercept it. So if the math of is this texture in my radius, if that math is done on the GPU, which is optimal on the GPU, then we can fix it if it's on the GPU. And those are the type of things where we hope that we can tap into that. I think some of it is on the GPU, because there's a lot of math that's better done on the GPU. So you will send the GPU positioning data, you'll send it, coordinates and whatever, and the GPU will decide, is it in view or is it not in view? And if that math is flaky and wrong, then it won't draw something, which is a GPU decision. So as long as you can tell the GPU, no, actually it is in view, make sure you draw that. So if we find the issue, we'll fix it there. Even I had a recent issue with Silksong where it had on the GPU an instruction saying if the alpha was less than, alpha is transparency. If the transparency is less than 1%, don't draw it. And the consequences of that is you have a gradient and it goes to 1% and it just pops. So now everything has, like, the lighting has this weird rough edge and it doesn't fade off properly. And that's a GPU. It was a piece of code that told the GPU, well, if instead of having a gradient go from 100% to 0, it goes from 100% to 1. So when it reaches 1%, it just pops. It just cuts off. And then you would see the ring of light and just this edge to it when it should have had a gradient and faded into the background. And you can fix it because it's a bad GPU command. It's like, no, not 1%, make it 0.001%. That way it's imperceptible. That's the type of things that you can do when you're messing with the shader code.
Because I think it would be incredible if RenoDX can fix popping, shadows, and other issues. It would be incredible to create, to have like an automatic correction where, it can analyze everything that it can intercept and then just modify it for your GPU and be like, okay, we have this much VRAM, let's just utilize it.
We're getting into this nice state of technology where AI is changing everything. I say it's nice because as I get older, I get lazier. So sometimes I don't want to sit there and scroll through 400 shaders to look for something. And it's getting to this situation where it's nice where you can have somebody, which is an AI, do all the grunt work. And actually brings me back to something that I mentioned before, which is what Nvidia is also doing, which is having an AI help you build the video game. So that I feel like is the better direction to bring it full circle, which is like, I feel like that's the better direction where it's not you making a video game. Sorry, it's not where you make the game and then AI takes over and paints over what you did. That doesn't sound right to me, because that sounds like the AI taking a brush and just slapping paint over what you did, which is literally what inpainting is. But if it's like, no, help me make this painting, help me make these models, and all the tedious stuff that gets annoying in video game development, the AI can handle it, and then you can focus on things that matter more. I feel like that would be the nicer future. And the AI can figure out, well, look, this is the most optimal way to put, grass on the field, and it does all the math and it does all that for you. And you can also say, look, there's this tone mapper, or there's this ambient occlusion system. I want to integrate it into the game, and the AI will integrate it. These are things that already done. But for you as a coder to sit there and write all that can get tedious. And then you can now dedicate to better art, better gameplay, stuff
Absolutely.
that matters.
And I think a lot of people are concerned about the artist, being put to retire or something because of AI. For example, I'm a classical guitarist. I play the guitar. Mm-hmm. My focus is on performance, not in composition. But I do have some ideas. Now, what I don't have is the ability to just get a phrase and then make a whole symphony out of it, right? But AI can do that. So yeah, I can have an...
I'm going to touch a little bit because somebody said, oh, I got you on the ComfyUI train. The rabbit hole. I've messed with that too. There's AIs that make music for you, but
oh yeah. You can tell me about it because it might be useful. So, but here's what my idea, for example.
Yeah.
I have an original musical idea.
Mm-hmm.
If I go and I study how to develop this a small phrase into a whole symphony, it would take me a lot of time. AI can do that for me, and it can do it probably as well as anyone who studied all that time, because basically you go to school to study what other people did. That's what AI does. So really, I have an idea. AI composes the the
Yeah.
music for me for my guitar, and then I am gonna play it. It's a human being performing the guitar, and I'm gonna change what I think I don't like or whatever. So at the end, I'm gonna play something that's my idea. It is original, uh, and I wouldn't be able to do otherwise. So I think AI can be definitely utilized to create, and it can be original and human. You know.
I mean, there's a lot of controversy. I mean, there was a point of discussion recently in the Discord. It was basically saying how much of your code is your code and how much of your code is the AI. Because I can ask the AI, I can say, this function is broken. It's supposed to return 3 times the input and it's returning 4 times. Find the error and fix it. And the error will fix it. You had an idea for a function, which is like saying, okay, I had an idea for a song. I want to have a crescendo here. I want this, in the same way you consider music generation. You're generating, notes on a page. Code is the same way. You have an idea of how things should result, and the AI is executing on your idea. It's still your idea. You're just having an assistant help you generate it, right?
Yeah.
So then that's the other question is how much code, and that's a philosophical question. How much code is your code, and how much code is the AI code? And in code, it's a little bit less of a problem ethically because there's a lot of open code that people don't care about sharing. And then there's also the problem of where did the AI learn its code, right? Did it learn from something that they were supposed to attribute? Did someone make a function and they're just copy pasting their function because that's the best way of doing it, and it just steals it straight out and doesn't give you the right attributes or attribution? So if you were to say, hey, Claude Code, make another RenoDX. Just make it for me. I don't like how RenoDX needs reshade. Make one that doesn't need reshade. And it'll just make it for you. And you can sit there and then how much code is it going to steal from me? And that's the ethical concern. It was like, well, it might steal a lot of my code because if the way I'm doing it is the way that you want it to do it, then it might just look at my code, generate a new one. It's a sad thing in the way that it steals, but also it's like we're going to reach a point where people are just kind of using AI to generate most of the code because it also accelerates a lot. And it's gonna, I don't know how it's going to end, but basically it's going to kind of, because of how easy it is, it's kind of going to take over a lot of coding if it hasn't already. And we're just not going to know. We're just not going to know if the code that you're running now was written by an AI or not. Was it written by somebody sitting in their chair, which is sometimes I do because, I mean, to say in my business, a client asked me for something. This is just software, right? Client asked me for something. He's like, okay, I want the icon to be red and not blue. It's like, I don't want to go all the way over there, find that piece of code, or I'll be like, Claude, find where that is and just make it blue. Is it still my code? That's the controversy. I'm getting a little off topic, but it's kind of how AI is. And then that's like how much is stealing, how much is cooperative, who's making the money. I mean, we're gonna depress ourselves if we keep on this train.
But I think most of the learning is learning from what happened in the past, from what other people did anyway. So yeah, we always need a human to innovate with something brand new, but I don't think there's an issue. I mean, if you go to school, learn how to compose music and all of that. That's not gonna teach you how you have your own ideas. It's just gonna teach you everything that other people did anyway.
That's the thing is like how much was intended and how much was laziness. We're not gonna know, and that can create a bit of a problem, especially with like DLSS 5. It's like how much was it really? Because I hear this argument all the time, even with like people criticizing RenoDX. It's like, no, the artist wanted that, and you are violating the original artistic intent. And like, I don't think the artist wanted purple to be blue. I don't think the reflection when it hits the light, that it should turn blue texture should turn purple. I don't think that was their intention. And but at the same time, it's like, no, they really intended it. And then how much of it's like, well, it's not worth the effort, right? And that's going to be the AI thing where we're not going to know. Some people are going to say, no, they really wanted Grace in Resident Evil 9 to have makeup in that scene, and they might just say, "Yeah, that's what we wanted. The AI did that," and then they're just going to stand behind the AI and say, "Well, you know what? The AI executed it on our vision."
Yeah.
And instead of saying,
Sure.
"No, we were just so lazy, we didn't want to hire another artist to actually do all that lighting. We're just going to stand behind the AI because it's cheaper."
Exactly. So let's do this. To have a conclusion, I think the internet definitely hated DLSS 5.
Yeah.
I see why. You know, it's very easy to understand. They shouldn't have called DLSS this DLSS 5. They should have just say, hey, it's one of these game filters. We're working on it. Think about the potential of using this in a very old games. You can have fun with it. You were not gonna play that old game anyway, and
I
that's
guess so.
it. And just make it better over time. And one day when it's ready, hey, you know what? You can now use this everywhere, and it's gonna be a no-brainer.
Yeah, and
Uh,
that gets to our topic, which is people are afraid of the slippery slope, which is then what are we going to do? If we accept this now, then what are we accepting? Which is, I think it's a valid argument. At the same time, I also it's like I hopefully people understand a little bit more of what it does, how it works, what the shortcut is, what to get out of it, and then we can say, what is responsible AI usage? Because I think being upset over painting over a game is a valid criticism. If you try to, as they did, if you try to paint that as the future, and we are rejecting that idea, we don't like the idea of that being the future. I like it as a gimmick because easily as a gimmick, I can throw it away. I can say, no, it's a gimmick. It's not real. I know it's not real. Don't try to gaslight me into saying this is the future of gaming because I know it's not.
yes. Yeah, it
Yeah.
shouldn't take itself that seriously.
Yeah.
And I think Nvidia just make it look like this is where we are going and that's what we're focusing on. And that was definitely a mistake. But I would really want Nvidia to focus first, you know, instead of doing a transformational
Yeah.
revamp, focus on just enhancing the game without changing anything because that's what people are not gonna be able to argue with. Who's gonna be mad that Nvidia, for example, has a way where right now the game is using 14 or calling for 15 gigabytes of VRAM, and I use this AI that's just increasing the quality of the textures up to whatever my GPU can can handle. I
Uh,
would get upset about that.
I mean, there's something interesting that because somebody before in the comments, and we kind of glossed over that, asked me what my favorite game is, and now somebody dropped a comment, um, basically saying I'll stick to small scale games made by humans. And I'm gonna be honest, I love playing my indie games, but I spend more time playing indie games, the low quality 8-bit stuff, and we're gonna see that divide. This is the same way we had the divide in movies, which is or video, which is like, no, this is a real artist. You're gonna see some real artists make real interesting concept because as AI starts taking over and making things more. I mean, that was another point I should have mentioned, which is one of the bad consequences of when Nvidia to optimize makes their matrix fully optimize their matrix so that it runs on your 5060 whatever it is. They're making a fixed look because that is what the AI has been trained and optimized to create. Yeah, the developers can make masks and decide certain things, but it will, because it's necessary to optimize, create a fixed outcome. So how everybody complains how Unreal games end up looking the same, the DLSS 5 games are going to look the same. They will look the same because it has to look the same unless they make 50 presets, but it also costs them a lot of money to generate those optimized matrices. So we will have a nice, and I hope it exists, the counter effect of I'm going to make something that looks nothing like DLSS 5. I'm going to make something that looks nothing like UE. That it's impossible to make an UE, which usually is the indie games. So that is the nice counterculture that I hope will come out because my favorite games are definitely the indie games. As nice as I have a 5090, I do all this HDR stuff, but the games I still love playing are the indie games. That's just because I'm old and I love my Super Nintendo and all those indie style games.
But I think the reason why Nvidia doesn't think that that is an issue that every game looks the same is because they are thinking in photorealism
Yeah,
as the end goal. And the thing is, not every single game needs to look photorealistic, and they are not. Not all games are aiming for that. And actually, I think if you look back to the old games, those aiming for a more realistic look, those are the ones who are going to age
yeah,
faster.
yeah,
And what the way to make a game timeless is because of an art style, and we cannot lose
yeah.
that because 20 years from now we're gonna look at this game and be like,
It
this is
looks like garbage.
garbage, I
Yeah,
cannot even play this. you know
yeah. All the
and
short. It looks great. I mean, that's I can't. They make the comparisons, right? You look at the PlayStation 2 games. It's like, to me, when I was a kid,
yeah,
this looks photo real.
yeah,
I look at it now, and it's like, this is garbage. How did I
yeah,
think it looks photo real? And that's
exactly,
gonna be us with DLSS 5 too, I guess, right? That's gonna
yeah,
be us who's like, we're gonna look at, oh, look how this looks photo real. And then you're gonna notice things like haloing around the characters. You're gonna notice things like stuff that doesn't make sense. Like I was trying to show, the video didn't show it really, but like all the wobbliness that happens in the background is
yeah,
like, how did I accept this as reality? Because you know what, it's our eyes get more, or we get more accustomed to, somebody just popped in, we just get more accustomed to the errors, because when everything looks right, that one thing that looks wrong just screaming at us. And that's going to happen again with DLSS 5, I'm sure.
yeah, yeah. And we can, let's answer this question. Is there a way to add RenoDX HDR to shader beam?
Shader beam. So let me make sure I'm not wrong on what shader beam is. Shader beam is black frame insertion. Is shader beam the CRT? Yeah. So
Yes,
this is Mark
Mark
from
Rehon.
Blurbuster.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so he told me that the reason why shader beam has a high input lag right now is
Yeah.
because Windows doesn't allow them to have the.
Yeah.
Uh,
I know how it works. I'm gonna
okay,
cut
go
you
ahead,
off
go
because
ahead.
I know exactly how it works. Because Mark actually sent me a message and he could donate to my coffee, the coffee seal refuse. Third. Yeah, he donated to my coffee, and I was like, yeah, I'm good with sitting down and talking about it. The way shader beam, I kind of messed with it the day he released it, and if you can look it up if you wanted to, the day he released it, I was messing around with Final Fantasy X. And in that moment, I was doing the PC version of HDR for Final Fantasy X. And Final Fantasy X is a game that I love. I played on CRT and on LCD when it was just brand new, and it's a 2000 something game. And one of the things with that we had to figure out, or at least I had to figure out because it was me messing with the game, was how did it look like to me when I played it, all those years ago? It didn't look like it was on an LCD screen. It looked like it was a CRT. What was a CRT at the time? What was the color space at the time? And I tracked down what the gamma was at that time, and we did the gamma emulation, and it looked amazing. And that moment is when he released the CRT beam emulation, and I dropped a comment saying this is perfect for what I'm doing because I'm trying to get, imagine Final Fantasy X, which is a CRT game, but uncapped, like all the brightness that was originally in the game, but with the CRT feel. So it's CRT, but imagine a CRT goes past 100 nits. Imagine it went to 1,000. So then that's when I dropped that message. Recently, I sent a PR, which is a pull request, which is a commit to piece of code basically to fix something in one of the shaders, and you can look it up. It's there on the Shader Beam GitHub. I had a short conversation with him, and it was like, yeah, I mean, I have no problem with writing something for that, because the reality is HDR is probably the best way to get that going, because the way the beams work. I even tried a Final Fantasy X, and I got it working because I don't have a 240 nit display, but Final Fantasy X is a 30 frames per second game, so I have a 120 frame display, so I can do 4 times in 120 frames. So I mess with it, and it actually works nicer in HDR because you can go above 100 nits, as you can't do in SDR. So you can have those flashes of light, because the problem is when you do the black frame insertion, as you know, you cut out the brightness. That's how you have to do it. But because you have HDR, then we're saying no, 800 nits with black frame insertion is 400 nits. So with SDR, you can't. You just can't do that. You have to. You lose too much luminance and it looks wrong. So then I messaged him. I'm still waiting for him to reply back. Maybe I'll bother him again. But I'm definitely down to writing the shader beam stuff for that. The way it's currently working, which is with shader glass, or I think is how they're doing it, is they are doing a just like OBS. They're capturing the game screen after it's already been painted, and they have that lag because the game has to generate the frame, do all its tone mapping, do whatever it have to, complete an SDR 8-bit image, send it to Windows, and then Shader Glass has to pick up that image in, read it back from Windows compositing whatever, and then do the black frame and then do the CRT emulation. The ideal way is how I do, with HDR, which is like before it even hits the screen, before it even sent to Windows, is when you do the 4 pieces of the CRT beam emulation. But he never got back to me. That is the long story short. He never got back to me. And there's a question: do I clamp BT601 to change the color temp to D95 for all Japanese games? We have in RenoDX, we have 4 different color spaces. One of the benefits of having HDR is because HDR is BT 2020, which is wider, then you can do D93, which means 9300 Kelvin color temperature. You can do that without sacrificing brightness. So even if you look at like RetroTink and stuff like that, if you have only an SDR display and you try to get D93, that Japanese color space, that bluish tint that all LGs and Samsung release with that's the default, is D93. When you try to emulate that on SDR, you have to cut off a piece of that, the color gamut triangle. In HDR, you don't have to because it nicely fits in the HDR color space. So that's another benefit. If you really wanted to get D93 as it's supposed to, without having to go to your TV and change the color space, HDR allows you to do that. And that answers, I guess, 2 questions from the.
Let me ask you, Carlos, because I have always, in general, I have always been defending this idea that I don't want to lose the old way of doing games, maybe, which is basically just don't use any assets, any things that are below the native resolution, if possible, even if you have to lower the scope of the game. Because I have been playing recently Battlefield 1, Battlefield 4, older games, where I can completely turn off anti-aliasing and it doesn't look like a broken mess. They don't look perfect. I still see shimmering. But what I see is, okay, it is possible. I know it is possible with the power of my GPU, my PC right now, to make a game that runs 120 FPS plus, and it's just almost pixel perfect. Nothing is below native, or so things are even beyond native just for anti-aliasing purposes. And so I have that crystal clear, clean motion, and that just doesn't exist anymore because now just the way the engines work and even the lighting and other rendering techniques, they are tied to this temporal thing, the temporal vectors and all that. What do you think about this idea? Like, am I totally wrong? Because I understand they want to create bigger worlds and it's just too expensive for the GPU. So my idea of don't create bigger worlds just not an option. So what do you think about that?
So basically, the ability to unlock, I mean, you can basically, we have that access. The nice thing about GPU, other than, so GPUs, the way they see things, if you can say see things, right, is in vectors, it's all in GPU terms, right? We have 32-bit flow and whatever like that. As long as the textures that you send are of a certain resolution, the GPU can decide how to scale it. So you would have to find Why did the GPU decide to not have that draw distance and to clip out, because usually that math is done in the GPU, to clip out things past this type of distance. So you can, I mean, I'm not going to propose that I know how to do it, but there is a technical way. I mean, a lot of stuff is like, I'm sure there's a way. So let's just give people access, right? You can say, I want to have the clip distance not be up to here. Tell the GPU that the distance is not 100 meters, it's 500 meters. You can do that. You can also say, if a game decides, I'll explain in a second what you can't do, but you can also tell the game to say, well, don't render shadows at this resolution, which means the size of the texture. Don't make it a 4000 by 4000 resolution texture for shadows. Make it a 16,000 by 16,000 resolution. You change the texture and the GPU runs the same math. You know, there's obviously some consequences to that. What you can't do is anything that's I mean, at least now in RenoDX, you can do it. There's another aspect of CPU side modding, right? Which is what I've been trying to avoid. You can't do more than what the CPU tells the GPU to do. So if the CPU is only sending a signal to the graphics card every 15 frames per second instead of every 40 or 60, then you're locked into that. The GPU, if you never send the GPU the signal to do it every 60th of a second, then you're always going to have a stuttery. For example, some games decide to say, oh, if they're far away or they're not in focus or they're NPCs, run it at 15. Run these animations at 15 frames per second. Run these animations at 30 frames per second. You can't just on GPU alone accelerate that. That is a CPU thing. The reason why I don't like modding CPU stuff in newer games is because generally a patch comes out and it breaks it. Then you're doing, that was the horror. This is the horror from modding Starfield, where Starfield is a game that came out. Bethesda makes an update. Oh, we can't do anything. The address library has to be updated. Our shaders didn't change, but because all the instructions of how the game worked means that there's an update, so we can't do anything until we read. Somebody has to go through and find out where everything is moved in memory. So when I did RenoDX, it was like, I don't want to be subject to that anymore. If a patch comes out, unless they change the shader, I don't want it to be an issue. But the CPU side is something that I guess is technically possible. I have not played with it for that fear. There is an aspect now, if you want to say, well, this game is done. It's been patched. They're not touching this anymore. This game came out 5 years ago. What are you worried about? No patch is coming. They're not making a new patch for whatever video game. Then that makes more sense. Then there's like, oh, they're not going to patch the game. Everything is fixed. I haven't explored that. There are things to do that now. There are nice AI generated tools will allow you to modify a game, and the AI will, decompile the executable, find out where that is, and if you want somebody's health bar to never go down or give them double health or whatever, the AI might be able to find that needle in the haystack. That is the future. That is probably the future of modding. I don't like building an AI dependent modding system, because an AI dependent modding system means you have to have a fast GPU and you have to have a model that can run an AI model, or run GPU that can run an AI model just to mod the game. That is a little bit too complex. I don't want to really get into that complexity.
What I have been pushing, Carlos, is this idea. This is what I want. My criteria is I want some games, not every single game. I understand some people want to have the huge open world game. I like this too, a lot, a bigger scope. But I want to have some games where we don't compromise the resolution. I know when you're trying to do something more realistic, and you have to make some compromises. But my problem is that those compromises for me are a deal breaker. So you're trying to give me realistic lighting, and now I look at a reflection, it looks pixelated, or I would say, okay, I much rather have a reflection that's not accurate, a lighting that is not accurate, but it is clean, that I don't see ugliness on the picture. That's my preference.
So I'm gonna admit I can only, and I have this type of stance where I don't like to put my foot in my mouth, and I only like to talk about things that I know for sure are possible, right? You can create just on GPU alone better ambient occlusion. There's like 7 different maths for ambient occlusion. You can probably here's where I'm guarding myself. Take a game and add path tracing to it. And if you're saying, I have this old game that has all this lighting and I want to give it path tracing, you can probably do that. How much time you want to invest into it and how much is automatic are 2 different things. I think a good example of this is the Mario 64 has been completely decompiled and somebody has added path tracing to it because the game has been decompiled. The game, you would have to do a lot of things to make it understand the lighting. But if you can do that, if you can take a game that has shipped on a 1996, so we're talking about 30, oh god, it's old, 30 years ago, made a game, decompile it, and add path tracing to it, then if you can do that, then you can do that technically with anything. It's just, are the tools available? And are you willing to sit and do that work? Which is where the whole AI thing is like, again, why it's interesting is because, there's a lot of things where like, I'm not going to do that work. That's way too much work to add path tracing to, insert your favorite game here, Ocarina of Time or whatever game from 2001. I'm not going to sit there and add it because it's too much work. But, the AI is kind of allowing things that we thought was too much work to happen. That
yeah, but, okay, yeah. But what I'm trying to say is that every time we try to move forward, we are moving forward with big compromises. For example, now we're concerned that this AI, what about the artifacts? What about the implications if you move the camera, this occlusion, this and that? So I don't like when we move forward and we have to deal with compromises. For example, we went from a CRT having good motion to a flat panel because it was cheaper, they were making more money or whatever, but now you're compromising the motion, you're compromising the contrast. So what I don't want is to never go back. See, I want to see a game that is just pure beauty. Like there is no, I'm trying to add this realistic lighting and then we have to lower the internal resolution of this and that. I want to see something that is just crystal clear, no defects. It's not realistic, it's not photorealistic, it's not accurate, it's not a huge open world, but it's just pure beauty, and that just doesn't exist anymore. And my point of reference is, for example, perfect example, I was trying Battlefield 1, no anti-aliasing, it looks acceptable, it looks beautiful. Now I try Battlefield 5, which was that TAA era with DLSS 1, and that game is completely ruined, and there's no way you can make that game look good. Absolutely no way. If you turn off anti-aliasing completely with a mod or something, it looks broken.
Yeah, that's always gonna be an issue because let's say you made a texture and the texture you knew was going to be upscaled. And I'll relate it to something else, which is color, because that's more comfortable on that one, right? So you made a texture for fire. The texture itself is pink, but you knew that the process that you were going to use was going to make pink turn into yellow because SDR hits a cap, turns pink into yellow. So now, we have HDR. We can raise the cap, but now something was built and designed to be limited and produces a different result when you remove the limit, which is kind of what you were saying. Which is like, and the issue, and where the hand tuning comes in, right? You have a game that is built around temporal AA, upscaling, DLSS, and you're gonna have textures that relied on how it looked because it was being upscaled, which is like, don't worry, we're going to upscale it. So then you just no, it's not going to be upscaled with DLSS. It's going to be upscaled with something else, or it's going to be full raw rendered. And then you're going to find certain things that don't scale the same way. And then it's going to not look the way you want. And then you'd have to fine tune, hand tune some cases where it's not it doesn't function. Hand tuned the cases where, because it was built for TAA, that you have to now create an alternative that is compatible with your 4K, 8K, which in a clear example is uh, texture upscaling. So before, it wasn't a problem. You wouldn't see it. It's too far in the distance, low resolution, would have been blurry anyway. So we don't need to add that detail. This is actually the HD problem. If you remember, I mean, I'm old, so I remember this. When TV went from SD to HD, one of the things I remember an article saying that people on the news, right? So you have the news table in SDR. That table's you can't tell what the material of the table is. It's garbage. It's a piece of plastic. It's painted with whatever. It was cheap paint. Now we have 1080p, 4K. People are watching the news, and now it looks like a cheap piece of plastic. Before, it was too blurry to tell a difference. Now they needed to go and update their sets so people don't see garbage plastic
Yeah,
tables.
that's what. Yeah,
They
that's what
had
I
to
tell
get
people.
4K, had to get 4K, 4K cut ready, wooden tables, nice, more expensive. So that's going to be a texture problem, which is like maybe the AI can upscale the texture, and maybe that is what I was saying. It's like, or you sit there and try to compose new assets. Uh,
Yeah, that's why I tell people that on my plasma TV, many of these problems that I complain about, I cannot see it because it doesn't have the detail to distinguish those problems.
and it has a charm, right?
Yeah.
We know it from CRT. CRT has a blurriness to it, has a certain charm to it. It's like vinyl. Like people like, no, I like it on vinyl better. It has a charm to it. Technically, vinyl is inferior quality to CD, to whatever, but it has a certain sound to it, has a certain charm to it, that maybe the music was made to be listened to in vinyl and have that type of lower quality, or whatever you want to say, lower fidelity, warmer sound. That's like, no, now here, let's transport you to as if you're in the studio and perfect 100, 128 kilobit sound, beyond 96. And it's like, it doesn't sound the same. It doesn't feel the same. So you'd have to try to create an environment, a feeling of, that emotional response that you had, that is
Yes.
based on low quality blurriness. Because even though we might think, oh, blurry is bad, it also has a certain thing where the human eye will say, well, that's blurry, so I'm gonna fill in the gaps with
Yeah.
something. And then wait, it looks that it's the it's the it's the meme of the guy after at the bar who's, the woman's beautiful because he has 7 drinks in him, but the moment he's sober, he's like, what did I wake up to? Basically, is
Yeah, but
the meme.
I think time proved me and many people right when it comes to this TAA era ruining a lot of games, because now you go back to them, you have a 5090, and there's no
Yeah.
way you can make those games look perfect. They're
It
always
is
gonna be
it is
blurry.
it is the same problem with AI, right? It's gonna how long is it gonna last?
Yeah.
Which is where we're saying, we're gonna look. They're taking the same way they took shortcuts with TAA, with DLSS. Then it's like, okay, but now we don't need to upscale. Now we can have textures, and those shortcuts are going to limit the growth of their product, which is like saying, don't rely on newer tech to make your game last the test of time, right? Don't rely on TAA to smudge the edges. Why don't you instead make something that doesn't rely on TAA, make something that doesn't rely on DLSS 5, and make something that doesn't need those type of hyper realism, because they will fade out. We will, as you were mentioning before, it's like I go back to a game from PS3, and it's like, it doesn't look the same. But if I am playing a game that is very stylized, very colorful, the nice indie games, they last forever. I can play a bunch of games that they're pixelated, but they have charm, and that is probably what you're mentioning, which is like, it's the dangers of too much technology to cover, or to remove the artistry in our products, where we add so much technology like TAA and whatever to smoothen the gaps, that when you don't need that anymore, it's like, well, what is the actual product that's underneath all the post processing layer?
Now, can you answer this question for Alec? And is asking: is it true that a game can originally be sRGB gamma or gamma 2.2 on SDR? Because I say that a lot.
So I so the way sRGB existed, I consider it a hack. A lot of things that we do is a hack. It's and hack is the term that the negative term. The positive term is it's a compromise, right? So the film industry is doing one thing. The people who work in their offices do another thing. The web browsers do another thing. The guys doing photo editing are doing another thing. So we need to make a solution where nobody is happy, where nobody wins, but we're making a compromise, right? So the way that sRGB and 2.2 came out is basically, it's called a 70%. We'll get there. At least we'll hit 70%. If you look in the Wayback Machine and you look at the original plans for what sRGB was, it's, well, these guys are using 2.2 in film and TV. We need a way to encode video. And we think, let's just pick a number. Like, stop this fighting, stop this infighting. We're going to pick a number. Everybody use this number and just get used to it, right? The textures themselves are sRGB. That is the texture. So every texture that they create, they encode it, they compress it in 8-bit sRGB. Very rarely do you see HDR textures. You can find examples, but for the most part, everything is encoded in sRGB. You take sRGB, you patch it through whatever system you want. You want it to be Photoshop, you want it to be a game engine, do lighting, do path tracing. You're taking your original sRGB texture and you're feeding it out and you're compositing, right? At the end, and this is why it's 2.2, at the end, apply 2.2. That is what the compromise was. You're manipulating the color because you went from sRGB encoded, the original texture sRGB, to now 2.2 decoded. So it's a mismatch. But it's a mismatch that everybody is supposed to do. So that means when you make your texture in sRGB, you're supposed to be looking at it in 2.2. Now you may say, but that's wrong. I didn't pick that color. I wanted 30% red. Why is it turned into 35% red or whatever the manipulation is? And you may say, well, I don't believe that 2.2 should still be the standard, but it is the compromise that everybody has done. What Windows has done and what Microsoft has done is basically made Windows HDR not have the mismatch. So they said, no, we're going to treat it like in, out. We're going to be one-to-one exactly what you recorded. So if you have a picture, if you have a digital camera, and this is the pushback is usually with photography, which is I take an image, I take a picture, and I encode it in sRGB. I am capturing real life. I am now compressing it down to sRGB, and I want to now undo that compression so it's back to as originally captured. So it's in to out. So for photography, for photo mode, even on your LCD and SDR monitors, they have a mode called photo mode, and that usually means sRGB, because if you took an image on a camera, you compress it to sRGB, you want to invert that so you go back to what your camera saw. The 2.2 is basically from a lot of squabbling saying, oh, Mac is on 1.9, HP is on 2.2, these other manufacturers are on 2.4, Europe's on 2.5, 2.8. So just, we need to stop fighting and pick something. And they picked 2.2. That's what they picked. And you're supposed to do that.
So
now,
correct me if I'm wrong, because he's asking, because I always say RTX HDR looks okay for games that I believe are originally SDR gamma 2.2, but for games that are originally sRGB, RTX HDR looks like it's crushing blacks. So for those that are sRGB, you use Windows 11 Auto HDR, and now the blacks are not crushed. And the other way is true. If you try to open a game that was originally gamma 2.2 with Windows 11 Auto HDR, it looks kind of washed out. Near black, it looks too bright. So he's asking, is that correct? Are the games really originally sRGB or Gamma 2.2, or is that just the difference between RTX HDR and Windows 11 Auto HDR, and that some games are brighter or darker near black?
So from my decompiling of the Windows DirectX Auto HDR shader, is a shader embedded in the DirectX file. It's a shader. It's literally a shader, and that's what Auto HDR is, a shader, and it does a little curve to make things Auto HDR. I don't think they had a 2:2 correction. So Auto HDR, as far as I know, is just an inverse tone map. But then again, technically speaking, inverse tone map, you're breaking the image anyway, so you can do whatever the hell you want. It's just the reality of it. RTX HDR is supposed to match what their training data was, so that is probably 2.2. I think it's even 2.4. I think they went too cinematic on, if I remember, too much contrast. How games are developed is a very controversial thing. Not controversial. Not controversial. It's very muddy because I have a nice OLED display. I have, it's an LG C3 42-inch. It does 10% 800 nits. Very great. It goes all the way to 0. That's my display. When these guys made it, and I love doing this because every time I love doing this in videos, every time I see a developer mention their team and how they developed the video game, I am looking at their monitors. I am looking at what they're using in the office. I am looking at what type of displays. I'm looking at their office lighting. Majority of the time, you have office lighting, and you have these HP monitors, which are good for color fidelity, but they're all LCD displays. You'll be lucky if they're IPS. They're probably TN. So when they're developing the game, they're doing literally, it's a 250 nit display in office environment, a TN display, because you know what? There's 40 developers. You're not going to buy them all OLED. It's too much money. And then they have the default for those displays, and they're usually just 2.2. But it's not enough to just say, oh, it's 2.2. You also have to consider what we were talking about yesterday, which is the lighting conditions. They're making these games with crazy bright office lights. We're sitting consuming the games in darker environments, especially HDR. HDR, we want to be able to see it better, which is why a lot of times I'll play a game and I would just ramp up to the contrast that I like. Like there's artistic intent, but at the same time, we're not in that environment, nor do we want to try to mimic that environment. You should have the most ideal environment. The supposed HDR environment is 5 nit background, which is 5 candles. So imagine my room now, which is kind of lit, completely off, no lights on, and 5 candles lighting my room. That is what I'm supposed to imagine. That is what HDR is supposed to be. So if you can create that environment, then to hell with the contrast, the low contrast that they had. Just ramp it up to your liking is basically what I would say. I wouldn't get too hung up on the sRGB and the 2.2. I think technically it's probably better to have no gamma correction at all and ramp up the contrast. That makes more sense to me because you're not introducing that mismatch. If the texture said it was red, then it's red. But then it becomes a bit harder because they're not looking at sRGB, straight sRGB when they're designing the game. They're creating it in sRGB to 2.2 in a bright office environment. So there is no such thing as perfect recreation of their intent. And even if you could, do you even want to? Do you want to have a bright environment to look at stuff? So I'm very much in the sense where just do what you like seeing, and don't get so hung up on trying to recreate what they saw. If it looks, because you don't want to imitate that environment either.
I think that's why it's better when I try to avoid giving a name to things, to not come out as an expert because I'm not. But the reality of the situation is very simple. For multiplayer games, we cannot use RenoDX. So we still have to rely on the game having native HDR, and if it doesn't, you have to use RTX HDR or Windows 11 Auto HDR. Now, why would you do that? Why would you use those instead of SDR? Well, there are some TVs and monitors that have a higher peak brightness when you have them on HDR mode. So you can potentially get a higher picture quality because you're gonna have more contrast. So what happens, the reality of the situation is you try RTX HDR by default. I think it looks better than Windows 11 Auto HDR.
Yeah.
You do have some sliders. And if it looks too dark, near black, very simple. Use Windows 11 Auto HDR. That's how it goes.
I, I don't I guess it's because as a modder, right? It's like if I see something I don't like, then I'm just gonna mod it. But that's my
But you
potential.
cannot do it on
That's something I
multiplayers.
yeah. That's also like stuff I can do. I mean, there it's always going to be a modification. I feel like once you are throwing out um the original presentation, and I mean even that's subjective because you can play a game in SDR and still get it wrong, right? Even if you set all the colors correctly and whatever, you don't know how they made the game in the office. You don't have that set up, right? RTX HDR is very biased to a certain image. Windows is more neutral, but it also depends on the game because you may not want that more neutral expression that Windows Auto HDR gives you because your environment might benefit from a higher boost. So you might say, no, you know what? I'm going to invite the extra contrast, or at least a slider, that RTX HDR gives me because all that Windows Auto HDR gives me, and I would love to be able to modify that when I can't. Uh, all that inverse tone mapping that it gives me doesn't give me the contrast I want. You can probably, if you really, really, really wanted to, use Auto HDR as a neutral plane and then use your display's contrast system to just tweak it a little more. But I kind of want, I do push that because everything is so variable. The concept, and this is this is a lot of stuff in film, right? Film is like, no, you need to have the right environment. We need to evoke the right emotion. But film is made for a cinema and they can control that environment. Games are not like that. They don't control, you can't control what display they had. Everybody has a bunch of different LCD, whatever, trying to make something universal. So if you want to tune it to your display, I say have at it, I don't, if you like RTX HDR because of what it gives you for your display, and that's what I was saying, that I use an 800 nit display. My display can do 10% 800 nits because it's a C3 42 inch. It's this massive of screen which is in my field of view. I can't even show you with my hands, but that light, when I get 800 nits of 10% window and 42 inches, it is blinding. I like that, so I want to exploit that. A lot of times these games are made on monitors. Even the HDR for PC gaming only goes up to like 400 nits or whatever. It's not even that impactful, I feel. It's a smaller screen. So even if you were saying, I'm going to reproduce exactly what they had, depending on what type of display you have, you might say, no, I can afford more contrast. And as we were mentioning yesterday, everybody's sensitivities are different. It happens all the time. And the reason why I kind of blab on about this is because it kind of happens too much, I feel, in the Discord, which people are like, what are the perfect numbers?
Oh, we lost Carlos. It seems. I don't know. Maybe he pushed the wrong button. So let me answer this comment, Alican. So I have clearly seen this to be the case. For example, you try GTA Trilogy, the GTA Vice City and Enhanced Edition or whatever that's called. If you use RTX HDR, it's gonna look too dark. It's gonna be way crushed. And when you use Windows 11 Auto HDR, it looks okay, near black. So I don't know. I'm not sure that. I think you're back, Carlos. If you can.
Yeah, I'm back.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I don't know where I cut off, but basically what I was getting to was the reason why I kind of get like blab on about this topic is because a lot of times people come into the Discord and they're like, what are the magic numbers that I need to make it look good? Like, what should I do? And I always was like, you shouldn't think like that. You really shouldn't. You have an environment, you have a display, you have preferences, you have your own, sensitivities, like physical. Your eye physically move differently than somebody else's eye. And I can tell you, you have to tell me, what do you like? Do you like seeing colors? Do you like the response when your eyes get blasted with white light? Maybe you do. That is what the highlight slider is for. Do you have difficulty, do you want things to look sharper and have a more defined contrast? And maybe you want to slide the contrast, more color. Maybe you want to slide the saturation. And I don't like this idea of my pushback with that's I feel like is the Hollywood thing. It was like, no, this colorist has said this is the right way it should be consumed. And it's like, and artistic intent should be understood. You were shown what they were going for. You understood what they were going for. And now you said, I understood what they tried to make a universal approach, but I have this type of environment, so I have to tune it to my environment, which sometimes is better than their universal approach.
Yeah.
If you have a nicely well-controlled lighting area, a very powerful display, then you can afford to make it more contrast, more colorful, and still understand what they were going for, but also I feel like enhance what they're doing.
Yeah.
To you, yeah. If you want to, why would anybody want to prohibit, if you have a piece of art, why would you want them to not feel the most impact from the art that you made? You want it to be impactful. Don't force a person to sit there, and not enjoy the presentation. There is some times which maybe for artistic reasons you might make a scene be like, I want the scene to be duller so that the next scene that comes right after is more impactful. I get that, but usually that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about letting people, tweak it to their taste so they can enjoy it better. It sounds sacrilegious because we're supposed to, bludgeon people who put on stuff that, put vivid mode and whatever. But unless they at least understand what the artist was going for, and then make the decision that best benefits your display and your environment.
Yeah, and it is true that people are gonna make mistakes because it's like food. If you oversaturate, you get desensitized, and desensitized. Now you need more and more saturation, and there comes a point where what you're eating is just absolute garbage.
Yeah.
The same happens with display. You see suddenly a change in brightness and color. You might like that, but that might be too much. And what happens is when everything is bright and overly saturated, then it loses the effect. What gives that saturation and brightness the power is when you see it, and it's not all the time. Because when you see it all the time, it loses the
Yeah,
power.
I mean, the definition is contrast. Contrast, we understand contrast. Normally, when you think contrast, you think illuminance difference, right? That's your brain thinks contrast, but the contrast doesn't technically mean that. Contrast means you have A, you have B, the distance between both of them. If you have everything at 100%, then the contrast is very limited, very, very little. If you have, darker scenes and you have brighter scenes and you have some scenes that have some muted, some scenes that have a lot, then you can have a wider, there's a bigger contrast between low color and high color. If everything is bright, then you're losing contrast. It sounds contradictory because you might ramp up the contrast, but that is how you can create an emotional response, because you can sit in a situation and see no detail a little bit or very muddy detail, and then in the next scene get impacted by something. And some people, unfortunately, don't know how to, they don't, as you said it with taste, right? Sometimes they don't taste it until you throw on a lot of salt. Maybe you get used to it. I mean, I'm gonna be honest. When I got this display, the first thing I did, I guess maybe I should. Whatever. The first thing I did was put Auto HDR, and I played Tears of the Kingdom on it. I had the game on Switch, but I rather play it on my OLED with Auto HDR and see those nice colors. Was I betraying Nintendo's intended view of the game? I don't think so. I think they wanted the game to pop. I think they wanted bright green and everything. And I made a situation, I made an environment that allows me to better enjoy what they wanted, which was a bright, colorful experience,
Yeah, absolutely. Now let's address these last two questions, and then let's wrap it up. So we don't have
Yeah.
that issue with YouTube
Yeah.
because it's an HDR live stream and it takes forever to process. Then tomorrow people cannot see it.
Mhm.
We have a lot to talk about, Carlos. I mean, if you can come in once in a while, that would be great. You know a lot of stuff, and you know things at a very deep level. So you're always welcome.
Thank
I
you.
think these live streams are incredible, and also for people on the RenoDX community, for all those developers. They are welcome here. Now let's address this. A question for Carlos: is there any benefit to use HDR 400 on an IPS monitor versus SDR?
Um, it's controlled. So the difference is that when you turn on HDR, you get to uh, the SDR. I like considering SDR to be basically random. Random in the sense where you have the developer has no control over what you're seeing, because you get to decide the gamma, you get to decide the color space. You can make it bright. It's a very uncontrolled, almost random system in SDR. Where HDR is, no, this is what they wanted you to see, assuming they follow the standards and follow the EOTF. Uh, uh, but when you enable HDR, you are able to, not only does it have less banding, because usually SDR is limited in 8. Even if you get up to 10, it's not the same as HDR in the PQ curve. But when you enable HDR, you get a different control for contrast. Not all games utilize this correctly, which is the whole point of RenoDX, right? But I don't really like, because I know HDR 400. There's also another thing, which is, do I use HDR 400? Do I use HDR 1000? Which is usually the next question that comes from this, which is, that depends on you and your environment. If you can, create an environment where you can see all the detail, then sometimes 400 is better. If you like the feeling, this is a physical thing. This is not something that you can just emulate with 400 nits. The physical feeling of the way this bright, intense light hits your eye, then maybe 1000 is better for you. The problem with 1000 is it has that dimming, which can distract you and pull you out.
Yeah, I think it depends on the monitor and the calibration of the monitor in those two modes.
Yeah,
The one that's more accurate, that's the one I would use.
Yeah, because also when it's more accurate, it means you can control it via software better.
Yes.
Right? That's kind of the thing, which is like, you have an HDR mod, ideally that's what RenoDX lets you do, which is like, no, RenoDX now understands what's coming out of your display, so it can tune it. SDR is a bit more random. You don't really get those options. And also the banding. I mean, I think it's kind of obvious. The other problem is that when your display is bad, then you're just dealing with, garbage in, garbage out. I can't really tell you if you have a display that doesn't respect any of the HDR standards and just does whatever the hell they want with the colors and the brightness, then that's the problem with SDR, where you're back to random. I mean, that is, unfortunately, there are displays that are like that, because sometimes monitor developer manufacturers and distributors want to just slap on the word HDR to say they're better than the other ones, even though the HDR might look worse than a competitor's SDR.
Now, some good HDR implementations that you have seen that don't need any RenoDX. Is there any game that you have tried or seen, or people on your Discord and your developers?
I get this question, but I mean, I don't even play that many games. The games I play with my kids. So if I'm playing a game, it's usually because my kids are playing.
But
playing
have you seen on the Discord that your developers,
usually it's like the game doesn't need it. I think there's not that much pressing interest to modify. I read I think of Ghost of Tsushima. I haven't played it, but I read the technical notes.
Yeah,
I read the technical notes on what they did. They're using Reinhardt per channel. It is a 2.4 game. So the game is not meant for 2.2. The game is meant for 2.4. The game is made for PlayStation 4, and and one of the things they did was they made a game that was supposed to be for 2.4, and they threw it on a PC market without adjusting for 2.4. So they just let people play it on 2.2. And also, it's like those type of things. It's TV setup is not PC setup. TV, you're supposed to consume it in a TV environment, and PC is supposed to be brighter. But on a technical level, as in code, it seems like the guy knew what he was talking about. At least a lot of their math seems sound, but a lot of times also those decisions made by people out higher up, which is like, well, that's what the boss says, you got to do it. But at this point, I don't think anybody has really messed with that. There's Alan Wake, which I know Pumbo has worked on. He worked on Control, but also a lot of times those things fall out of favor because of management decisions. Um, I know that the DLC for Alan Wake 2, he didn't work. Pumbo didn't work on any of that. I know it was a bit of an issue with Control where he has to slip it in as an innie because they didn't want to make his options default, but they're there. They're in there. Um, I you would have to look at the Discord. Some games, even some games, we just take a game. I mean, even this game. I'm going to be honest. This game is not horrible. I
No,
mean,
it's not that bad.
we want people love criticizing stuff. I don't know. It's just the vibe, right? On the internet, we like criticizing, we like complaining. But this game isn't terrible. I mean, there's a RenoDX mod for it, but yeah. But what are we doing? We're not doing all that much compared to other games. There's other games which is like, what the hell were they doing with this game? Why is Black Level so horrible?
Yeah,
This game is technically sound. They didn't make the
yeah,
massive mistakes that other games make. There are things that we know from as a team from our experience with working with bioluminescence tone mappers that we were like, well, we do this now. We play with ACES 2. We know stuff. And there's other games that Unreal Engine, the HDR is ACES 1, and if you can nail that look, then it's usually okay. The problems we have is when they make a custom SDR thing and the HDR looks nothing like it. But Unreal, if you don't mess with Unreal's numbers, you don't make a custom tone mapper, you don't do any of that, then it should carry over to HDR pretty well.
but
That,
for me, this RenoDX mod for Crimson Desert was not a minor thing. Like just removing this garbage chromatic aberration, sharpening, film grain, it just makes a huge difference. And I think it looks more correct too. It's it doesn't crush it doesn't look like you're crushing blacks at night, and it doesn't look like this clipping all the time. I mean, even when you start the game, you see that it's not clipping at the very beginning scene.
so that is their intent with ACES 2. It's to not be an opinionated tone mapper. So it's supposed to be neutral, but even in making a neutral tone mapper, there are consequences of that. It's not supposed to be as harsh contrast as ACES 1 was. ACES 1, I had to put the contrast saturation up to 80 just to match it in most games. So I have a neutral tone mapper, and I have to ramp it to 80 just to match what ACES 1 is doing. So ACES 2 is much more conservative. It's about 55, 60 on the slider, depending on the game. Somebody else is saying what makes HDR and PS5 look different on Windows. It's the gamma. Windows is basically sRGB, and PlayStation 4 as everything on TV is 2.4, and 2.4 is just looks nicer. 2.4 is that nicer contrast per channel and more color, more contrast. And you go to Windows HDR, you're used to 2.2, and now you're going to sRGB. It's just less contrast, and our eyes are we know what we like, and we like contrast. It's like it's like candy to a baby, right? It's that the sugar that we like, and contrast is like that. Too much, and it looks weird, but generally more contrast, our eyes eat it up. We just love it. It's just how the human eye is and how the human brain is.
Makes perfect sense. Well, thank you very much, Carlos, again for joining the live stream. Let's leave it there so we don't do too long. We've been live for like 2 hours and a half.
Yeah.
This was great. Again, anytime you have a chance, you can jump in. We can do a
Yeah.
live stream.
But I'll say even in moderation, right? We don't want people get sick of me.
No, no, I
Yeah,
was
but
gonna get
yeah.
sick of you. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I'll say try to get those other. I mean, if you had questions that I can't answer, right? You have I know the RenoDX, but there are people. Ask Musa to answer some questions. That all these guys they're very talented people, and you ask them. I'll try to you're not a scary person to go on stream with. It's a nice environment. Your chat isn't horrible either. They're nice people. It seems like. But yeah, you can ask other people to come on. I feel like they'll answer better equipped to answer some of those
I mean,
questions. Yeah.
yeah, for sure. I mean, they are all invited. Yeah, we have a very good chat because I have never, one thing I did very well, looking at it in hindsight with this channel, is I have never argued with anyone. If someone ever drops a comment that I don't like, I just ban them forever. I don't. I have never say
Heavy hand, right?
anything.
Yeah,
Yeah,
a
yeah.
heavy
So,
hand.
so everyone here is reasonable. You can disagree with me. That's fine. But
Yeah.
if you like do something offensive or something, I just get rid of you
Yeah.
completely.
Yeah, it was
Uh,
fun. Definitely fun. Anytime. Well, not anytime. We got have the personal. I have a personal life, but
sure,
this was
sure,
a
sure.
good weekend that I didn't have too much going on where I can jump in, and it's nice to tell people what we've been doing, get a feel for what people are people want to see, and
Yeah,
understand the project, right? Understand what we're doing.
yeah. And if you ever have something to promote, something that you would like people to know, you're welcome to come here, talk about your new project or any advances in RenoDX or anything remarkable. You have this
Yeah.
platform for you and for the RenoDX community, because I think the work that you have done is just uh, legendary. I mean,
Thank you.
it's just like there's nothing like it. I think you saved HDR gaming because it happened to me, not knowing anything. I got my LG C1, uh, bring it home. I tried God of War, and
Mm.
I was I was like, okay, if this is HDR, my TV is broken, because I could not believe that a Sony, first party, such an important game, was gonna look like that. I could not believe it was the game. I thought it was my TV. When I look at that fire, it was all messed up. So, we had so many games with problems with HDR, and now having this Reno DX, uh, they have been fixing even older games. Like I played Battlefield 1
Yeah.
and 4, and now they are saved. When it comes to HDR, they look incredible.
I mean, we have a. I know we're wrapping up. We have the last thing I've done. This is January, February, which is a big push in code, which is OpenGL and DirectX 9 support. It's kind of been, all those bugs. Hopefully, I fixed all of them. So there's old DirectX 9 games that just have this potential that's been locked away. That Grand Theft Auto 4 and Mirror's Edge. I pulled up Bastion, which is like before Bastion. What is before Hades, right? Same company. But that game, you can get some HDR out of that game too. And all these games that we they're lost to time, and they existed in an SDR world, and we had no idea there was all this potential to them. And I'll push back to saying, I don't feel like I've really saved HDR. I feel like they're just following the footsteps of a bunch of people. I mean, I was asked to join. Really, it comes down to there was a bunch of people before me. There's Lilium. There's Pumbo, who was doing this stuff for a long time before me, and it was like it was nice of them to extend the opportunity to me to join them with Starfield and all that. And I just the same way they invited me to join and make more stuff, I'm inviting everybody else to just join in if you have a desire, and you can. We're on we're on the Discord, and help make more stuff. If you have an interest in stuff, that's what we're pushing. Don't let old games die into obscurity. There's a bunch of stuff we can still do, which is what you were saying, right? Bring them back to life is a nice thing that we're kind of exploring now too.
Yeah, and it's making a big difference. So yeah, let's leave it there, man. Thank you very much again, Carlos. I thank you very much to everyone who stopped by the stream. If you're seeing this offline, later, you can drop a comment, and I always go and answer them. If you have any question for Carlos too. So yeah, let's leave it there so other people can see this one. Thank you very much, and you guys have a good one. Anything else to say before we go?
Just thanks to everybody, and thank you.